Now, pray.
Good morning, Smite fans, and happy Friday as we jump into day number 3 of the Smite Pro League promotional tournament. We've had 2 jam-packed days of action and have already eliminated 2 teams from our prestigious tournament, and today we'll be sending another 2 of those teams home and their chances to try and make it into the Smite Pro League. We'll get to watch some of the losers matchups. We'll get to see some of the winners bracket matchups as well. And I believe all of it is going to be starting today down in the lower bracket. If you're unfamiliar with kind of the format of this league, if you've missed the first couple of days, well, we got a nice little graphic for you. We've invited 10 teams to come out to participate in this event. As I said, 2 of them are already gone in this double elimination bracket. Our top 2 teams will qualify. We'll have 1 from the winner's side of the bracket and then 1 from the loser's side of the bracket that will make it into the Smite Pro League. And every single one of our broadcasts from Wednesday all the way through Sunday will be starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So make sure that you're tuning in at that time every single day to catch some of those matchups there. Taking a look at our brackets right away, you can see the 2 teams that have been knocked out. So Tartarus Titans and the Athenian Sages are 5th and 6th seed teams, actually, the ones who are the first ones out. So our top 4 teams and our bottom 4 still remain, and we'll, unfortunately for those bottom seed teams, be sending 2 of those home after today. Shibalba Storm, Valhalla Valkyries, Yomi Tanuki, and Kaolin Wardens. 2 of those 4 will be going out at the end of today.
And that's where I have this very small bone to pick with you, J-Man. You said happy Friday. For some of these people, it's not going to be a very happy Friday, dude. Their dreams are going to get crushed.
Hey, but for half of those teams,
for half of them, it's going to be a great Friday.
Gonna be great.
For me, it's going to be a good Friday, a happy Friday, because I just get to watch a lot of really fun Smite.
That's true.
So I guess it's all perspective based. You're right.
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective, really, whenever it comes down to.
For you, it's a really happy Friday.
You know what? Getting to come into the office, talk about some Smite, watch some good Smite. That's a good Friday for me, Gormizer. If you didn't already catch
Good Friday is a different time of the year.
Yeah, that's actually, wait, that's in like a month, isn't it? Something like that.
It's
like
like
a month
Easter,
and a half.
right?
Yeah, something around there. But talking about our first matchup of the day, it is the Yomi Tanuki up against the Kaolin Wardens. Talking about the Yomi Tanuki, I mean, if we want to talk about a player who's really set the stage for his squad, who has really been one of the big playmakers out there, we got to set our eyes over towards Grave. The Bans.Games, the Peles that he's been pulling out in these sets have been so pivotal for his team, getting these ranged initiations on the Bans.Get, where at times Grave was the only physical damage for his team. He was the only one doing any kind of actual physical damage, where everybody else was building either double Guardians, double Magic, with Magic ADC in mids. So having this kind of breath of fresh air for Grave has really been a light for the squad.
Yeah, I think that what we've really gotten to see is there are moments for the Tanuki where almost everybody else is having a shining light, but Grave has been the most consistent shining light for them, right? Like, Shippigami Promise, Rundas, even XD are able to have these moments where it's like, you did something big that fight, and that's why your team's successful. But Grave is the most consistent from top to bottom. I mean, we're seeing not only just absolute slaughters of kills, but there were times, even one in that very first highlight, where that double kill as the Bans.Get keeps them in such a massive lead. Otherwise, it's maybe going to equalize the game. And so you've got a player who is making sure that the team is finding themselves in a successful position, continuing to push themselves through a successful position, and finding a pretty big win, I think, up front against the Valkyries. Kind of starting off their tournament in a good way. And now continuing for that fight, right? I mean, being in this kind of position, you have to be a little desperate, right? Like, the hunger has to be there, but there's even more. There's that fire burning under you. I think Grave has showcased that with that flame, kind of with that motivation of lose and go home, it's just gotten stronger. And so what they do here, and I think that they are going to be one of the bigger impact players to make sure their team can continue to find success.
And it really feels like for some of these squads that have dropped down into the losers bracket, it's kind of lit that fight or flight style of mentality for some of them, where it's like, okay, well, we can't mess around anymore because we do go home if we end up losing these sets out here. And so we've seen this spark up from the Yomi Tanuki, and we saw a bit of a spark up from the Kaolin Wardens yesterday as well. We got to really see their step up. Their first set of the weekend goes the full 3 games, unfortunately falling at the very end in game number 3 to the Shibalba Storm. But now trying to make themselves, get themselves on the low comeuppance here. Piloted by their leader. I mean, we've talked about him a lot, and we're going to keep doing so if he keeps performing the way that he did there. Elleon out of the jungle, really the big leader for his squad. And when we got the chance to talk to Tubahh in the post-game interview just yesterday, he was saying, I mean, everybody is talking about, like, this is the guy. He's going to be the one, controlling the comms. He's going to be the one telling us what play style that we need to go through, that we got to play through him. And when Elleon is hot, he looks nigh unstoppable.
It's a double-edged sword, though, right? Because then, like, if they keep giving you the praise when you win, it means they also can throw you under the bus in the event of a loss. But no, I do think that it's just someone who has been incredibly impactful for their squad, right? We said it yesterday, as you mentioned, after Tubah's interview. But you've got a player that is playing in a fashion that some of the older teams and very successful teams in Smite used to be able to, which was you have one guy who is playmaking, you've got one guy who is setting up calls and is the vocal leader for everything that's going on, and everybody else just plays the role and listens, right? And as long as you listen in, whether it's a good call or a bad call, as long as you commit to it, the team's going to find success together, right? And so that's what I'm looking at for the Wardens here, is seeing how they move as a unit. One of the things Tubahh had said yesterday that really stood out to me was the fact that he said that Leon's first 20 minutes is the best 20 minutes, right? It's just always going to be concise, always going to be very solid, and that's not just for him as a player, but that's him for his comms, that's him for his command on the map. Right now, what we have been seeing, especially in the way that Smite has been going, there's a lot of importance on your draft. Once you get into game, right now it's pretty heavy on the jungle, but everybody has to play well or else it falls apart pretty fast. But the other part of that is your macro play, especially early on, being able to control that map, whether it's neutral objectives like the mid camps or if it's expanding into the Gold Furies, eventually your Pyromancers, things like that. And I think that if you have someone like Leon who is giving you all these shot calls, kind of guiding everybody essentially to water, all you got to do is drink at that point, right? And that's exactly what the rest of the team is doing. And so as long as he can keep those calls pretty much concise, exactly where they need to be and where they have been for the last at least two sets, I think that we could see a lot out of the Wardens here, and I think that the Tanuki are going to have to be worried.
And I wonder if we'll see maybe that same mentality out of the Wardens today like we saw in yesterday's setup against the Sages, where Elleon is the one saying, hey, let's go over to the solo lane, let's pick apart Remikami for a couple of times, and then we'll go over to the duo lane and focus down Primitive in that regard. And it really put the front line of the Athenian Sages so far behind that we never got to get to that, that unkillable style of stage that we've been accustomed to seeing some of these solo lane warriors. But at the same time, we're probably not going to see many solo lane warriors out of the Yomi Tanuki because so far Rundas has played, I believe, two gods, Jormungandr and Chalk. So unless the Yorm is banned, we probably won't see the Chalk, and maybe even if the Chalk and the Yorm are banned, we'll have to see exactly where Rundas can go in his god pool.
It does create the conversation and kind of bring in the question I have as well, which is how deep do your god pools go? Because that's what I think you should be most worried about right now if you're the Tanuki. Look at XD. He's played Vulcan. Yeah, and like you said, Rundas has played two different gods. And granted, maybe there's some more variety elsewhere on the squad, right? You can have more supports, more junglers, things like that. But they've been going to more comfort picks as opposed to maybe meta picks, like the Bastet has been pretty heavily prioritized. Whether it's going to be successful or not, we've seen one really good game, one kind of game. So really, I think the Tanuki are going to be put in a position here where the Wardens have done their homework. Suddenly they're forced to play something new. And if they aren't forced to play something new, the things they've been going to can be kind of abused pretty easily if they want to put their focus on it, right? Like you had mentioned in solo, but I also think that if you just go to mid lane, you say, cool, well, we're just going to make sure this Vulcan doesn't exist anymore, get him down 2 levels, and then suddenly Joshy can just have the time of his life, whatever he's playing. I think that there's definitely a lot of wiggle room for him. You had mentioned taking care of the front line. I think shutting down Promise would be a really good thing for the Wardens to try and do. Control that front line, and specifically a Guardian, and getting rid of some of the picks, making sure that the CC is not going to be as consistent. It really opens up your avenue to just run them over, and if your front line can't protect you, your back line is going to be a very easy jump and a very easy dive, and so someone like Leon or Slaaaash could just get back there and hard bully anybody who gets left by the wayside. So I think there's definitely a lot of wiggle room for the Tanuki to showcase some improvements, and I think a lot of it might start in picks and bans. Some good bans, if Magic Feet's been paying attention, doing some of the coach stuff, and Leon's been making some of the calls, there's a good chance that players on the Tanuki just don't get their comfort picks, and maybe we'll see a different team.
And I think maybe even adjustments on the fly is such an important thing for both these squads. We had to watch the Yomi Tanuki at one point make these adjustments. When Promise is kind of getting bullied, Rundas had to really adjust up his build one time on the Jormungandr, where in the first couple of times we saw it, it's this near full damage style of Jormungandr. You get one or maybe two defense items, but the rest of it is just, this full power style of, I'm just going to abuse the backline, throw some spit at them, whatever it may be, and just get all this damage stacked up. But it was one game where we had to watch Rundas go away from that. He had to build his defense very early in the build and had to make those kinds of changes on the fly. I don't think it ended up helping too much by the end of that one, just because Promise had fallen so far behind by that point. But I think that's the important part in these sets, is not just the game to game, the pick to ban, between game 1, game 2, and maybe a game 3. But it really feels like the actual infield adjustments, this guy is getting bullied, I need to step up over here, this guy isn't getting his farm, we need to make sure that changes. I feel like that's probably the most important part, especially for these lower seeded teams, because we see it in the SPL. Okay, well, you look at Jade Dragon's Ledger. Okay, well, Pagon's not able to get anything going. We need Panda Cat to step up this one, or we need Scream to have a pop-off game, or Scream's being quiet. We need Pagon to maybe pop off in the mid lane kind of thing. Now we need to see those kind of change-ups and that kind of mentality for both of these teams as we go into this set.
One thing I'm really excited for, and I think that is going to maybe stand out the most here, is the fact that we've seen such a wide and eclectic god pool from both of these teams, but not in the sense that Shinigami's played 5 different gods. No, he's okay, you played 2 or 3. Promise has played 2 or 3. Spring's played, or it's not Spring. XD's played 1. Grave has played 2 or 3. Right? Everybody's played just a handful, maybe. And what you're really getting is on that one side, a team that is maybe a little easier to predict, at least up front. Of okay, well they've been going to this pick, this pick, this pick. Either we ban those, or we just let them have it and we pick counters for those. Whereas on the other side, you've got Tubahh, who's been playing things that are, at least in my mind, very outside of the meta, right? It's cool, can we get Freya? No, I'm going to play Chiron then. It's I'm sorry, how did you get from A to B? And he talked to us about it yesterday, right? Well, if I can't kill the guys that are in front of me, why not just have someone who can shoot further beyond, get a good Centaurus? And so, maybe we'll see more plays like that. Maybe it'll be the Chiron coming back. I know Oceans, we've mentioned it, but really liked playing the Maui when he was able to get it. That's been a high priority ban. I think there's just a lot of options meta-wise, and a lot of options these two teams-wise, that makes this pick and ban phase in its entirety a lot more interesting to me.
It feels like this may be one of our first matchups in the lower bracket where we actually see this kind of clashing of ideologies, really, where you have the Wardens that are playing very close to meta, but they still have their picks, and then you have the Tanuki who are playing not so close to the meta, but still somewhat close enough, and maybe we'll actually get to see some real battlings there. Because you look at teams like Shabal Storm, they're running double assassin. You look at over at the Valhalla Valkyries, they're running double assassin, or maybe sometimes a mage that's not a mage ADC over in that carry role. So now we actually get to see kind of how some adjustments get made between those teams. As the picks and bans for game number 1 of the Yomi Tanuki and the Kaolin Wardens kick off, media focus towards Elleon for the Yomi Tanuki, and probably right to do so. These are picks that Elleon has controlled the map with already through either this event or even just in his ranked play out there. So it will be the Naja on the Thor, and then a Chiron, a shot at Tubahh there on the side of the Kaolin Wardens. And then for the Wardens, they'll ban away the Jormungandr and the Soul. So at the moment, we've only had to see the Chalk as an adjustment for Rundas. I wonder if we see the Wardens maybe throw a respect ban that way and see what else is in the pocket of Rundas.
It feels so awkward. I feel like, well, I was going to say if you don't get Freya there. Although we did see it yesterday, right? It's someone who has been so highly prioritized, theoretically, or at least in my mind, should have been, towards the top. Because it might not be an immediate win condition, as we saw with the Sages in their last game. But it's still a damn good god right now to have on your side. It's a lot of damage, a lot of safety that she's going to bring for herself. And then the early game clear, but then late game swing potential she has is absolutely insane. I'm surprised to see Yemoja, not because Yemoja's not good. I think Yemoja's fantastic. But with Yemoja and Maui available, as long as you're able to play both of them pretty well, it feels like either or is going to be a pretty wide open choice for you. And so if you had grabbed someone like the Freya, you force the Wardens into something else, they could grab the Yemoja or the Maui, but you get the other one, so you're not really feeling that hurt. As of now, since he supports so high up, the Wardens can focus on some other high priority picks.
My children, and
like
take
Tiamat.
over this land.
Of course, I say the words high priority, and Hachiman, who we've not seen at all this tournament, is there, so they're going to grab some of their own comfort picks. I'm going to assume that's for Tubahh to fill in that spot and can do
No one
something
can
similar to a
extinguish my
Chiron. Not
flame.
as well, but can do something similar. And then in this next slot, you can grab the Maui if you want it, and not have to worry about your support pool getting banned, or Ymir if you want it, since he's been pretty high up in the qualification as well.
Well, it looks like XD might be going away from the Vulcan of his own accord. Merlin now picked up for the Yomi Tanuki alongside Pele for Grave. Typically, we've been seeing Grave
Oh
go
my
for
God.
the Bastet kind of top pick if it's available. And then if it gets banned away or if he feels like going to something else, then we see the Pele. But we're seeing an immediate adjustment from the Tanuki in just game number 1. Yemoja, Pele, Merlin as a top 3. Option goes back over to the Wardens now. Hachiman, Tiamat, and a Guan Yu going to be locked in for Slaaaash on that side. We've been seeing a little bit of Guan Yu this tournament so far. Has had 7 games played and over a 50% win rate on that pick already. So a guy that's been doing a decent bit of winning, but hasn't been an auto-win condition for any team just yet. How do you kind of feel so far about this kind of new look at the Yomi Tanuki top 3?
Well, you know, I didn't know, like, I was excited, and admittedly, to see what XD is going to bring in mid is maybe the one that's, like, the biggest question mark. Then I see Merlin has an 83% win rate so far this week, and I think, well, you know what, maybe he's going to have a good time, right? Things that are going to be a little easier for you. What I like is that the Wardens have put the Tanuki into a very, just a difficult spot right here. Because you can see they banned the Lancelot. I assume the next one's going to be another ban towards Leon because they want to try and control that performance as much as possible. But that means you're still leaving so many good high-priority support picks open up for Oceans. They do get rid of the Bacchus, so maybe that limits it, but there's still Maui is still available and would be maybe my go-to just because of how good he can be in the right hands. You had called it earlier, though, a little bit of respect towards the Chalk, immediately recognizing where some of their issues are, right? Tiamat technically can get out of an Odin cage, but the other two would struggle against it. Walls here would be incredibly strong, and there's not many that are going into solo lane outside of Odin that can put up walls, right? So ban that one away, make sure your team stays safe, and you don't have to worry about it. Unless they're going to swing something wild like a Kabrakan solo, or if they are really wild Ymir solo, your team doesn't have to worry about the lack of leaps so far, and that gives a little bit of wiggle room as well for Leon to pick up whatever he wants last.
So Freya still available if the Tanuki want to go there. Olorun if you want another Magic ADC. Chronos even, but we haven't really been seeing a whole lot of Chronos this event so far comparatively. If the Yomi Tanuki want to go towards a Magical Hunter, but with a Xing locked in, going to completely bypass the Maui for the side of the Wardens. Maybe a little questionable, but at the same time, Oceans has already piloted this pick once before, and it's worked out well. So now the option goes back to Yomi Tanuki. They do need their Hunter, and they do need their solo laner. Artio at top of the mind, maybe just for the Guardian solo laners, because one thing that we've been talking about is if you're not going to go, with the Warrior, the big mitigation style of build, you go for a Guardian that can really use that Tablet of Destinies. First god that always comes to my mind is Artio in that case, and we will see that one picked up for the Tanuki. With a Rama being hovered, I think maybe the biggest question has been the performance of Rama so far throughout this event compared to some of the other physical hunters that have been locked in. 3 games played, not a single win. Yomi Tanuki are maybe hoping to change up that win rate.
Which is really interesting because he has been, and you go back to Worlds, right? You had Ishtar, actually Ram, I would argue, took 2nd place over Kernanos, despite the fact that I think Kern got it to see a fair amount of play, at least in the run-up towards Worlds. And so you're getting this guy who was 2nd pick already a while ago, like you said, 3 games played, 3 losses so far, and is behind the other picks. Like you had mentioned at least 3, 4 that I would maybe think of beforehand. With the Artio locked in and the Merlin and the Yemoja, going for something, if you're going for a Guardian in your solo lane, then stacking on a Freya makes it maybe a little too easier for the Wardens to just grab a bunch of magical defense and not worry too much about it. But so I do like at least the diversification of your damage types. Merlin's going to be able to burn through a lot. Pele, Ram going to be able to do a lot. That's where that Xing can come in handy, though. At least having some basic attack mitigations with the Furious Roar, making sure they do less damage. If they had gone a little heavier into basic attacks, maybe you can start talking about like horrific emblems, things like that, to really, really stack it. Don't have to worry too much about those right now. I think that the Xing, like you said, and in my mind, there's still like 2 other supports that I probably would have gone over the Xing. But I think it's a really good pick. Gives a lot of setup, a lot of CC. When you have something like the Hachiman beside it, it's going to be easy follow-up with his Serqet. You've now got easy follow-up and easy setup for the Tiamat, for the Hachiman. So really, I think that the Wardens have put themselves in a position where they can just run in, choose a fight when they want to, right? Xingqian's got a lot of CC, Serqet's got a lot of CC. You hit your taunt, that's a fight that's going to be worthwhile for your team. If you know Tiamat's there behind you, you know that you're going to have a pretty big follow-up. If you go over to duo, grab someone with your ult, throw them in. If they beats that, Xingqian grabs them and throws them back. Somebody's going to be picked up, someone's going to get bullied. I think the Wardens have picked up just enough CC that they're going to be able to kind of drop of the hat, choose their fights, pick all the engagements they want, while also being mobile enough and safe enough that every single one of their picks can get away from any not great engagement. Even if they start it, if it starts to go south, they can get out of there pretty easily. So they have a lot of choice of whether they go in, whether they fall back. Whereas the other side, you've got a lot of good CC, you've got a lot of good sustain, you got a lot of decent damage. It's just going to be putting them all together, right? Yemoja, one good Riptide, sometimes chooses to fight. There's a lot of mobility on the other side, so that's not going to be the easiest. Your walls, really solid, but couple of leaps on the other side, make it a little easier to keep people, or a little more difficult to keep people in there. I think they have a very good composition. It's just all about execution.
We are so close to jumping into our elimination matchups here. Yomi Tanuki, Kaolin Wardens, both on the losers bracket. One team is going to be going home by the end of this set. And one thing that you mentioned here, Gormeister, that maybe I'll toss a question towards you is because of the amount of CC that the Kaolin Wardens have. I mean, you mentioned the Guan, the Xingqian, the Serqet, all able to really lock down a person. Do you think that maybe emphasizes the need for purification beads, maybe for one of these frontliners? I mean, Yemoja, no CC immunity, Artio, no CC immunity, Merlin as well. Feels like those are three characters that if any of them get caught by that Xingqian, really feels like beads are going to have to be a heavy priority, whether that be first or second relic.
Well, the good news for for Artio is cripple field as well as bear form, and you can dash, right? So like if you get grabbed, you theoretically could still make it out after the fact, but that's not going to be the easiest thing. Like you said, if they start bullying the Artio early on and that's not enough to get you away or create some space after the fight, right? Xingqian grabs you, throws you back, you just bear dash the other way and try to get away. If that's not going to be enough, then yeah, I think by level 12, you're probably starting to think about it. You could forego it, and I think you'd still feel fine. Yemoja might be a different story, though, right? You're already someone who's probably going to be in the firing line super early on, someone who can get bullied pretty easily, as you said, from a lot of the CC, and you're super immobile. Even with your Riptides, you don't go super far compared to some of these others. So if you get grabbed by a Xingqian and they have enough burst, it could be absolutely atrocious for you. I think it does depend a little bit on the early game, though, right? If you get to your level 12 and you only have like 3 or less deaths, I don't think you're stressed out as much about needing the CC. You could probably go for something like a Magi's somewhere in the build, get an item that helps proc it, maybe get some CCR if you really are worried about it, just to try and keep yourself alive. If you have 4 or more by the time you hit level 12, you're definitely starting to think, especially if it's mostly been caused by some sort of CC, yeah, you're starting to think, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get my beats. If you get it early on, though, like, I mean, if you load in, grab it first, your team loses, honestly, quite a bit of safety, right? If you had something like a Shell or a Med that we've been seeing there, suddenly the sustain in lane or your capability of trying to play a little more aggressive disappears, and you have to play a little more selfishly, a little more patient, wait for that level 12 mark to have some of those defensive relics. But it does mean that you would avoid some of those deaths at level 5, right? And that's kind of the big qualm you have to face here as the Yemoja is like, how willing are you to risk it? And admittedly, I think it's worth the risk, right? I think that you just forego the beads at the very beginning, hold on, wait until level 12 to see where it's at, get a vibe check for like 12 minutes of gameplay, and see where it goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting matchup to see how it kind of evolves throughout the game. As you said, maybe not something immediate that you need to worry about for that CC, but definitely as the game goes on, if you're falling behind, might need that extra little bit of safety for yourself. But you also mentioned Magi's Blessing could be something that could be picked up, that Magi's Cloak, for whether that be something for the Pele to pick up for themselves, or maybe even one of these other gods out there. But we do need to take it to a very quick break. When we get back, we'll get you guys set up for game number 1 of our elimination match.
People are nice, but it's only for the tips. The weather's fine, but it's nothing I would miss. My only friends are the ones I left behind. Wish I could see them just for a moment, 'cause I don't know anybody here, it's awfully lonely. I smile, but they just stare, and I see misery every
Apologies for the delays, fans, but we are just about ready to jump into game number 1 between the Yomi Tanuki and the Kaolin Wardens. To reiterate the importance of this game, winner continues to move on, loser goes home. By the end of today, we only have 2 teams left in the lower bracket to continue forward. We're going to jump right in, though, to game number 1 between the Yomi Tanuki and the Kaolin Wardens to see who's going to be taking advantage in this set. Let's throw it over to David Myth.
Let's waste no more time. The Yomi Tanuki and the Kaolin Wardens battling it out in a best of 3 in an elimination match. We've already had a couple.
Uh-oh.
Promise.
No way.
He's going to step forward and see 5 of the Kaolin Wardens waiting around the corner. They're not going for it. They're going to let Promise back away. Slaaaash will head back to base. I like the creativity, Myth, but it doesn't pay off this time.
I can't believe they didn't at least try and take out Promise there. You got a couple blinks on the side of the Kaolin Wardens, decent CC potential, maybe just worried about leveling up. Some of that CC would want to keep you away from moving in towards the taunt for Serqet, or maybe the knock-up for Oceans would really hurt your jungle clear. So instead, I suppose just praying that he would have walked into the 5 of them. I don't know. That seemed like a pretty prime opportunity. It's not as if Yemoja's exactly tanky just yet, but regardless, the Kaolin Wardens reset themselves back to neutral. It's just a small threat.
I didn't introduce you. What's your name?
Mifflin?
That's Mifflin. My name's Dilson. Doug, also with us.
Did you not introduce us?
No, we went right into the action with Promise
man.
nearly getting jumped on by 5, and so no one knew who was commentating their games or spectating them. And hyper important that we get that all sorted out. Now, these are 2 teams, Myth, that I think throughout the course of this week, we started to learn more about the identity of this Yomi Tanuki team. You know, they weren't seeded in that top 4. The matches later on today actually ended up being the top 4 teams that we figured would be there. Though the duo lane drama maybe not over. Grave here, it's level 2 and it's not even in lane. It's fresh after the purple buffs. And how about a Riptide backwards from Promise?
Oh my god.
Beads from Tubahh. The last bounce of the bubble's enough. And Promise, just moments ago, nearly getting 5-man ganked at level 1. Turns it around with the help of Grave and a great start for the Tanuki.
Just pay it forward, right? You go for your little cringe gank early, get it returned by Yomi Tanuki. Unfortunately for Tubahh, I think he actually walked into every single bit of damage that he could have there. Every single tick of the bubble from Promise finds its way home, and that slow keeps him in range for all the ranged auto attacks. That said, it's not that big a deal. You at least got the experience from Purple. The wave hasn't even gotten into the tower just yet. You're looking at a pretty significant XP disparity, I suppose, maybe about a quarter level for Tubahh, but the most important is where that first blood actually lands. And going over to the support, I'm sure Tubahh's okay with that.
And Elleon wants to get things going for the Kaolin Wardens. Grave assists on the first blood. Taken down to about half HP before Elleon on the Serqet makes his way over towards right, pick up some of this neutral farm. So he's gone Bluestone on the Serqet, but Tubahh also goes Bluestone on the Hachiman, worth looking at potentially. We've seen a lot of the Death Toll starts into Aussie, Exy, those types of builds. Poke damage potentially the name of the game here for Tubahh to stay alive and build up some threat over in duo.
Yeah, Hachiman very good at just throwing out that Heavenly Banner from a range. Has so much mana sustain just by nature of being Hachiman. One of the better ability hunters in the game as well. Not exactly a great position to be in, though. Hachiman wants to be able to use that EI Jutsu aggressively for the stun. If you're forced to use it defensively every single time, you're missing out on a large deal of that burst potential. Not sure what Leon's getting up to over here.
Being annoying.
I suppose. Take a little bit of the farm away from your soul lane or two. Slaaaash already forced back to base. That's tough. Experience loss on both side lanes for the Kaolin Wardens.
Now, it's something we've briefly hinted at prior to fighting breaking out, but both teams have sort of showed us an identity over the last few days. The Tanuki team we hadn't quite figured out, but this is the identity of the Kaolin Wardens. It's Elleon all over the map, and it's Elleon realizing his team wants to play around him, or will play around him. Take it how you will.
Regardless
of desire, it's going to happen. And it's been a lot of these controlling type picks. Now gets the Serqet. Has a great Naja that we saw yesterday. Some other good options. Seems like wherever Elleon goes on the map, that's where the Kaolin Wardens follow.
Yeah, Serqet jungle, I think, pretty interesting as a talking point as well. We've only seen it once so far this week, and it was a full tank Serqet. Berserker shield in second slot, straight down. I believe it was even a prophetic cloak for him as well. Elleon generally has been very vocal about tank jungle meta, does not love it. So I'm thinking he's probably going to go down a damage tree. Jotun's in first slot, more than likely, just to get that CDR available. But otherwise, I am curious to see how he decides to itemize. Could just go down the complete standard, right? Jotun's, hi-rez,
Right.
Heartseeker, full burst style, but you really want to be able to stick around in these fights a little bit longer. The reason Tank Serqet has seen so much value in the past is because of how committal all of her damage is, how long it takes to channel that ultimate, just gives over some opportunities to your opposition to return damage quickly. Maybe a little bit of defense could do him well.
I'm thinking, the sets we watched yesterday, Elleon had near 100% kill participation across both games. I think there was one kill towards the end of a game where the rest of the Kaolin Wardens were fighting and Elleon was on a different side of the fight and just didn't grab an assist. And then in the post-game interview, we talked to Tubahh. I was like, Tubahh, you're going up against a Maui and a Freya. That's like one of the most sought-after duo lanes right now. And Tubahh said, I just got to sit back. Elleon, he's got sort of this the storyline built around him that he takes over teams. Right. I don't know what that is in English.
Me either. A little something,
it's a little right. A little what do you call it or something like that. But Tubahh's fully on board, and it seems like the rest of this team is as well. Saw plenty of tweets from this Kaolin Wardens team where they realize they're not seated in that top 4. However, believe they have an ability to make a run, and I think 4 sets in a row is what you got to win from this point in the event onward in order to make it into the SPL. And Yomi Tanuki got a lot of personality on that team as well. Rundas maybe fell with a bit of criticism earlier in the weekend, seeing a lot of Jormungandr and where's the God Pool lie? Now we'll play the Artio. Tubahh mounted archery away, but walks back towards Grave.
What?
And Grave will be given a kill. And this Pele off to a good start here in game 1.
My man had a direct line to his tier 2 tower and just pulls the trigger to turn to right. What?
The horse was stabled for too long. You needed a little extra galloping,
The wild hare here was not listening to its rider, Tubahh. Look, I couldn't tell you, man. That is I thought maybe he was trying to bait towards his teammates. I look at the mini-map. Nobody's there either. Slight misplay.
Do you consider Harpy's teammates? No, they're
Who's
neutral.
to say? He probably dies either way, but
That play had a little je ne sais quoi to it.
there was something special there. A little special sauce from Tubahh. Look,
Doesn't pay off.
it has not been an ideal game for Tubahh so far. Dying on Invade, now getting ganked again by Grave, but
Is that expected on a Hachiman? I mean,
No.
Are you ceding pressure?
you remember the narrative of the 2 safest hunters in the game? It was Jingwei and Hachiman.
We haven't
and then
talked about Hachiman in so long.
Yeah, they released time, and he was just way safer than both of them.
Right.
But Hachi is incredibly difficult to kill. I mean, he survived the entirety of the Yemoja ultimate, too. Just small blunder at the tail end there.
Oh, what you're picking Hachiman for maybe is the safety then. Hasn't paid off for Tubahh just yet. Hasn't fallen that far behind, just the 1 level. The Shippigami finishes up the Aussie, and so the laning phase not going to get much easier for Tubahh, at least until he's able to go back and finish up. The tier 1 item
man.
still doesn't feel great to be behind, but it's less impactful than having a full Aussie on the other side compared to just the tier 2. So right now, it's a massive advantage for Shippigami, and that means the Kaolin Wardens, they're going to fight elsewhere. Grave initiated on by Elleon, but how about the knockups from the rest of the Yomi Tanuki?
Got the dash.
They've rallied around the Kaolin Wardens, and both junglers drop for now. Mid laners will join the fight. Damage out from XD on the back end. Some sustain up from Rundas, and it seems like both teams happy with just the 1-for-1.
I don't know if Promise is all too happy about it. Nearly finds the lockdown on both Oceans and Slaaaash, but able to narrowly escape. That is too much sustain on the side of Yomi Tanuki already. The Kaolin Wardens, I think, get a heat check early on, just 7 minutes into the game. The healing from Rundas, the meditation from Promise, the healing from Promise, the self-sustain from Grave, which will likely come a little bit later on. I'm keeping my eyes on the builds now. Brawler's Beat Stick, gotta be on the mind of the Kaolin Wardens. Leon sure has 100% anti-heal when he's in that ultimate. But otherwise, maybe you consider an Onk here. It's not as if Rundas can be choosy with his heals.
Man, Grave taking all of this talk about Elleon personally, making his own mark on the game. 1 level ahead of the Serqet. 3 out of 3 affected kills on the Pele. That was one thing we noted earlier on when the Yomi Tanuki dropped in their set. I mean, you're going up against some of the very talented teams that are still on the upper side of the bracket. And it felt like Grave was a bit quiet in a couple of those sets. And so I think this is the type of game Grave really needing. Regardless of how it turns out, we can at least say in the early portion of this game, the Pele's made its mark.
And done so incredibly well. I mean, even in the last team fight, gets a really unfortunate interaction where the Volcanic Lightning is canceled by Leon's ultimate, or not canceled, stopped in place, I should say. You'd think he'd die immediately afterward, but found a whole lot of value before he falls down. Yomi Tanuki are a team that have played through a whole lot of aggression in the majority of their sets, and continue to do so as Rundas loses the dash.
Rundas initiated on by Elleon, and that's a pretty simple kill over in solo. Slaaaash plus Leon was a big win condition for the Kaolin Wardens yesterday. Guan plus Serqet, plenty of initiation for this Wardens team. Just need Joshy and Tubahh to get there, deal the damage. And Ocean's on the Xing Chen myth. I mean, we haven't seen it. Yeah, just the one assist so far. But initiation into Whirlwind of Rage and Steel feels like, at least in the last set that we watched this Wardens team play, Oceans and Leon very much on the same page with one another. In those initiations, the jungle roams, we're all on par.
But something I've noticed from Leon in particular is that he's kind of stuck in the Season 9 jungle pathing. We don't see him often rotate over towards this duo lane. Feels like when junglers get involved towards duo, that is one of the most important turning points, especially in the early game. You can see it. 2 rotations from Grave in the first 10 minutes have put Tubahh at a really big disadvantage. Shi'igami has been playing hyper-aggressive, attempted invades toward purple buff on his own, controlling the majority of the neutral farm over there. A couple more rotations from Grave just keeps Tubahh playing passively. If Leon could find his way over to the left side of the map, I think would go a long way in getting Tubahh back into this game. It's an entire item disparity between him and Shi'igami.
Oh my God.
I mean, Hachi's out. He's not fighting anymore. I'm sure he's got some gold in pocket. Could probably get at least a balance blade,
yeah,
but
right, tier 2, you probably.
Still not ideal.
Yep. Yeah, you're gonna need 600-700 more gold. Although actually a bit cheaper if that's what the second item is there. Regardless, don't have enough money for it just yet. Again, it's tier 3 to tier 2 feels still pretty bad just thanks to the passives. A couple of those first items. And I was wondering, and we were wondering, I'll give you some credit here, Myth. Actually, I'll give you all the credit. You were wondering what direction Elleon was going to go with his build. Stone of Binding after the Jotun's Wrath. But to lock down those targets and really set up for additional burst damage. Something we saw a lot of yesterday with this team was Leon plus Slaaaash, yes, in the team fights, but also combining for blue buff invades. One more for the Kaolin Wardens, but that's opened up. A Gold Fury for the Yomi Tanuki on the left side of the map. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel sends Promise out of the River's Rebuke, but it's right towards Tubahh, who's dove by Grave. Oceans will flip away. The Tanuki get the Gold Fury in the meantime. Leon joins the fight over on left, trades out the 1-for-1 kill. And Promise on the dash away, caught out by Slaaaash. Ends up being Gold Fury, yes, for the Tanuki, but they've lost one more member.
2 for 1. I think you still favor Tanuki there. Tubahh being the one that dies, actually probably ideal now. His bounty just much lower than everybody else's. So long as he doesn't pick up a kill, he's just not exactly valuable to shut down. Yeah, Crusher, I'm fine with that. If you're going for a poke damage, you don't want to really box in lane. Get some additional value from the Heavenly Banner. Still has attack speed on it, so it doesn't hurt you too much either. Crusher in a very good spot. The Kaolin Wardens, that's the first rotation we've seen from Leon to the left-hand side, and it was just to prevent that Gold Fury. Unsuccessful in that, successful in finding a couple of kills, equalizes the game just ever so slightly. But Tubahh, he's still in the fire, man. I mean, Shi'igami's been allowed to play here too much. Look at the ward coverage. Yomi Tanuki have got pretty aggressive sentries on the left-hand side. Shi'igami's allowed to play aggressively because he will know if Elleon start to make those rotations. The Kaolin Wardens similarly have aggressive wards, but why? Get them defensively. Help Tubahh out because really nobody's rotating over to help him.
On the right side of the map, Tanuki have great ward coverage and basically all of the jungle entrances over from mid. Actually, a couple of them just now timing out, but seems like solo lane and mid, at least from the right, will be relatively covered vision-wise for the Yomi Tanuki. Rundas might want now because that blue buff has been under pressure effectively every single time. Slaaaash at 201. Rundas just the earlier assist here in this game. Building up stacks on that Tablet of Destiny. And that's one of the really good synergies over in solo lane. Artio, Tablet. It's felt fine for a lot of the solo laners so far here this weekend. It's Pyromancer pulled. Looked at least by the Kaolin Wardens. Leon and Grave battling it out a bit. He'll take the beads. Maybe still back away to the objective.
Ocean's is taking a lot of damage. If Promise finds this flank, that River's Rebuke could be massive. Good job forcing them back, but the Kaolin Wardens reset their objective.
River's Rebuke up, but that's defensive from Promise. Pretty big teamfight utility now gone. If the Yomi Tanuki and the Kaolin Wardens continue to fight out. I'm a big fan of the new Stone of Binding, by the way. I think, you know, if you have all these forms of even soft CC, it just feels like you're getting so much value out of it. Elleon is going to be running in on these fights. Serqet's in a pretty good spot to make good value out of that. Grave plus Elleon, though. It's been a fun battle to watch so far. Grave winning the early portion of this game, Myth, but suddenly feels like the Serqet's found its footing.
Yeah, it's that survivability, again, that Stone of Binding you bring up, giving over just the opportunity to play Initiator. You notice how in these team fights, Elleon, generally the first one in, chooses the target, tries and toss him towards the team. Oceans will be hovering nearby, but maybe not as mobile as this Serqet. Yomi Tanuki, they've seen the playbook of the Kaolin Wardens.
Wow.
They want that Pyro. Yomi Tanuki, they just take it away?
Yomi Tanuki, they just drop it. They'll pick up the Runic Bomb, but is it going to cost Promise his life? It sure does. Sticks around for just half a second to pick up the Runic Bomb, and the Kaolin Wardens right on time to call the Yomi Tanuki on their objective pull. But we have seen so many times over the course of this weekend where teams are, yes, getting kills, but they're losing in objectives. That's exactly what's happening here. Tanuki behind in kills, but up almost 3,000 gold. That'll change. The Wardens have grouped up on tier 1 and mid. That'll shift a little bit of gold back, so call it a 2,000 gold lead when it's all said and done. But a Fury about to respawn, Myth, and I think that'll be our next battleground.
I think so. With Runic Bomb in the pocket of Promise, I might even call it worth to trade your life to pick that up, considering the spawn timer of this Oni Fury. 1,000 damage goes a long way. We'll see whether or not the Kaolin Wardens can contest.
Ocean's on the initiation, but he's just sent XD to the back of the fight, and Ocean's forced to leap away while Grave will dash right back in. The Wardens have lost the first blood of this fight. Slaaaash galloping away, so he won't get the stun. And a rough-looking early portion of this fight for the Wardens.
Wardens, though, still healthy with their 4 core members, can try and stick around. But Yomi Tanuki, with all their sustain, you wouldn't even be able to tell that they had just taken a fight. Fury going slow, it's all about the bait.
Oh man, Rundas being chunked down just a bit. He'll head his way out of the Oni Fury pit. Respawns through from Oceans. Doesn't have Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, but does have Shell, so there's still some utility in this fight for the Kaolin Warden support. Rundas needing some of the sustain that Promise can provide. Oh, he needs a lot of it. Right around the corner go the Kaolin Wardens. Joshy deletes the soul laner of the Yomi Tanuki. And now the scale's tilting just right back to the Kaolin Wardens. Tanuki had a small advantage, unable to press it. Now it's the Warden's turn.
Tubahh still relatively low, as is Slaaaash. It's not
again.
about the Fury. We're looking for the fight.
Uh-oh, Grave, he's in the back.
Good
He's
stun.
got Tubahh. And Tubahh somehow lives, but not for any longer. Grave will finish off the dive, and Joshy's on a killing spree. After 2 straight kills, Oceans will clean it up, but Joshy did 99% of the damage. The Wardens bait in the Tanuki wonderfully. And now after some burn, this Oni Fury goes to the Chaos team.
Yeah, Yomi Tanuki, I think, maybe playing with a bit overconfidence around their sustain. Rundas sticking around at about 50% HP, gives over an easy target for Elleon. Can't sustain when he's hit you with the ultimate. Immediately afterward, Grave, hero play syndrome, tries to go in, turn it all around for his team. Finds the kill onto Tubahh, but Tubahh is not a factor in these team fights. Doug, can we get a look at the player damage? I want to see actually how active Tubah's been. Well, about middle of the charts. Actually put up a good deal of number. I didn't really even realize he had done that much. All right,
Some
good,
poke damage
good dive.
rolling through.
Yeah, poke damage, throw out the Heavenly Banner, a little bit of attack speed. All right, Tubahh, I see you. 0-4. It's never looked this good before.
No, it hasn't. That's why it's surprising. Promise actually doing more damage than Shippigami by just about 100. Yemoja made its presence known. I just think back to exactly what goes wrong there for the Tanuki. Feels like the Wardens, maybe just good ward coverage, but maybe an overstay or 2 from the Tanuki. No resets on the health. Sustain is good, but not enough to delay a lot of what the Kaolin Wardens were looking to do. 7 affected kills for Joshy, who I think has had a wonderful tournament so far. Of course, a lot of the conversation with this team revolves around Leon and Slaaaash after the set that Slaaaash had yesterday. Joshy has just been so consistent for this team. This Tiamat has been a pick that they've gone to a couple of times, and it's consistently looked good.
You know, I've been talking to some Smite historians, and They had reminded me of Joshy's pedigree. Actually, an ex-SPL player, like way back when.
That's right.
In the mid lane. So I think no surprise to see that he's been doing well for himself and for this team. He's a bit of a quiet player. Really likes to let his gameplay do the talking, and so far has done exactly that. The
How about
Kaolin
the
Wardens,
Tiamat in general? I mean,
it's a distinctly European style, and it's a distinctly European player.
yeah, it works. Promise. Gonna get chunked down a bit. XD will send out a bit of the void damage just to keep the Kaolin Wardens at bay. Now Pyromancer looked at by the Wardens. The juggling of objectives continues. Tanuki have an opportunity to step forward. Remember, you have snipes from Shi'igami. If you want to use that ultimate early, Ocean steps forward, sends Promise back.
Not great.
Slaaaash dashing right back through. Oceans and Promise, these two supports just exchanging which one is going to lose half of their HP first. Little sustain from Slaaaash. Looks like keeps Oceans in the fight. Has to stick around. Grave searching for that opening target. Backline has constantly been that option.
A lot of damage.
Pyromancer down to half. Smash forward. Drops a stun. Grave looking for the backline. Has found a double knockup, but the rest of the dive is just a bit slower. Tubahh survives and first kill of the game. Finally hit for the Hachiman. It'll be a double. And when it rains, it pours. Suddenly Shi'igami's got to use beads because the Kaolin Wardens have a little extra damage, a little extra CC on the end of the fight.
They're resustaining slowly. Oceans
Whoa.
playing with fire. I think I'd prefer to see him back in base. He doesn't even have the mana to play here. But will use his body to create the space. Pyromancer falls down. And the Kaolin Wardens credit for it this time around. Yomi Tanuki, it's over-aggression again that I think cost him this fight. Rundas walks in completely on his own. Takes way too much damage before the rest of his team can follow up. XD tries to get in range. Tries to throw out something to peel out for Rundas, but just takes too much. I believe it may have been splash damage from Tubahh on that ultimate. Grave afterwards, similarly to the Gold Fury, notices Rundas gets knocked out, says, I have to do it, and I got to do it on my own. Goes in with the ultimate, nearly knocks down two. That double knockup into the immediate AoE damage Volcanic Lightning. Although massive, not enough on his own to secure those kills. And the Kaolin Wardens claw their way back into an advantageous position. You got to play careful, though. I know Gold Fury's spawning. It's very easy to get tunnel vision, put the horse blinders on, and think about that alone. As we've crossed that 21-minute threshold, Fire Giant, a pretty decent target for both of these teams.
Yep. Tubahh has really had a turnaround in this game. Myth now finishes up dominance, back to level equity with Shi'igami, where he was 2 levels behind for a large portion of this game.
Yeah, killing Grave will do that for you.
Yeah, that'll do it. Grave, you know, it's sort of the... Every once in a while, it'll be the jungle mentality where you're going to go in, you're going to delete a target, but you're going to die. And you often see high kills, but high death numbers. That's what's happening to Grave after what was a really nice start. Stone of Binding, that feels good for Elleon right now. Rundas has already used the beads, and there'll be a chase down by the Kaolin Wardens. It'll Oceans on the kill, and immediately back to FG. That is an instant FG call for the Kaolin Wardens. They do have a runic bomb, but the Yomi Tanuki, they've got a few on the right side of the map.
Slaaaash locks eyes with Promise. Leon does the same. It's a zone here, but the Fire Giant is taking no damage. You got to make a call. Either let Yomi Tanuki in and take the fight, or keep up the zone and commit yourself to the burn. But so far, at 80%, nobody's hitting the fire.
Rundas has teleport in 10 seconds, not upgraded, so it'll have to just be to the tower on right. Kaolin Wardens, they agree with you, Myth. They don't like how long that Fire Giant was taking. Maybe hoping to bait in someone from the Tanuki. We saw that around the Gold Fury. It was just Kaolin Wardens, they were chilling on the objective. The Tanuki step up, and the Kaolin Warden turn it around, get the kill, and then get the objective
Tanuki
later. It is a repull. Rundas did teleport to right, and now the Tanuki forced to head back over to the Fire Giant pit. Rundas respawns, teleports, dies again. And there's your bait from the Kaolin Wardens. They would have loved Fire Giant if nobody showed up, but someone did. And now you got a one-man advantage. You already got 4 working down the tower on the right side.
It's ugly there from Rundas. The die into respawn, TP in, die immediately combo. Never pretty, but I think legitimately prevents the Kaolin Wardens from grabbing Fire Giant. I don't think the rest of the Tanuki were realizing it. Grave maybe started his rotation over towards the right-hand side of the map, but too little too late. Rundas prevents the largest neutral objective.
This could be a very costly death. Kaolin Wardens get a little damage on the right side. Phoenix, but don't stick around. So they'll head back. 0-5 for Rundas on this Artio. Now, a lot of that was active decision-making from Elleon, right? The Serqet Hung out on right with Slaaaash good bit of the time.
Oh, no, not again. Not Rundas again. Come on.
No. Well, he's in trouble. He doesn't have beads for 50 seconds.
Let my man breathe.
Does he even know they're behind him? No, he has no way of knowing they're behind him. Elleon
Oh, no.
goes forward. Stun from Slaaaash. Everyone look away. Close your eyes.
Oh,
You didn't see it. There's a slight smile on Rundas' face, right? That's the best you can do is, all right. Like, come on. Yeah, head shake. We don't have ward coverage. That's unfortunate, and there's nothing you can do. It's an active choice from the Kaolin Wardens to stick around and send one more death to the Artio.
I mean, there are some things you could have done.
What? Not leave
Not
base,
walk up
I
to
guess.
the lane, like that
Sure.
lane in particular, I guess.
I'm trying to be nice.
Me too. Leave him alone.
At
Kaolin
0-6.
Wardens.
At 0-6. I'm trying to be nice. You're right. You don't have ward coverage on right. You know the Kaolin Wardens have been baiting this Fire Giant for the last couple of
You
minutes.
absolutely know they're there.
You know they're somewhere on that side of the jungle. You're right. There's different ways to have played that. Still hyper unfortunate. Pyromancer picked up.
He's doing it again. He's at least this time he knows where they are. All right.
Right.
Yeah, into the jungle, meet up with the
Right.
rest of the team.
Right.
Good stuff.
Unfortunately, Rundas, same level as Oceans, and just one level ahead of his own support. Difficult game so far for this Artio. Gonna need some time to get that build fully stacked up where the Kaolin Wardens have really taken things over. The last couple of objective fights seems like just baiting the Tanuki a bit more effectively, fighting with a one-man advantage. Now double Runic Bomb plus Primal Fury. Didn't have the best Fire Giant shred a moment ago, but they should be feeling a bit better.
It's not even that they didn't have the
They
shred.
just didn't really commit,
They
maybe.
legitimately didn't hit it.
Yeah.
But there was like a miscommunication. Let's bait him in, save your abilities, don't burn the Fire Giant. Slaaaash says, okay, I'm baiting him in, and walks directly at the enemy, kind of forcing them back. Had he allowed Yomi Tanuki a little bit further into the pit, I think the Fire Giant fight actually happens. That said, Kaolin Wardens with 2 Runic Bombs, I think, reset, walk to Fire Giant, just pull it, commit. You've got best burst on map, easily 2,000 damage immediately from just Elleon, and that's not even taking into account the fact that he's got a mage on his team. So Tiamat should help out a good deal there. You got a slight lead in the fight, about 4,000 gold. It's mainly about the power spikes, though. On the right-hand side, you're starting to approach 6 slot. Already upgraded some of those starters. Pendulum of the Ages for Joshy, Leon going down that Bluestone Brooch tree. Significant power spike for Grave, though. And a fight around the Fire Giant would favor a Protector of the Jungle. Getting a percentage power around the Fire Giant. Pele's always been the goddess of 1-for-1 trades. I think maybe now 2-for-1 might be the odds.
Feels like the story of Grave and Tubahh have been intertwined so far this game, where Grave's game started out wonderfully. A couple of the kills at the hands of Tubahh, or the feet of Tubahh. Tubahh starts off 0-4, now suddenly on a 4-kill streak, where Grave has quieted out a bit over the last few minutes of this game. So a tilting of the scales in that area as well. Now the Yomi Tanuki, they've got data on how the Kaolin Wardens want to play this. What they don't have data on is exactly where Elleon is. Sends some damage towards Rundas, but he's caught in the River's Rebuke. Or is he? Will dash away and off to the side. Snipes up from Shippigami. But Shell helping out a little bit here. Grave looking for the back line, looking for Joshy, but won't get him.
Still
Joshy
alive?
has flipped it around. Rundas from the depths, though, has turned it and gotten a very valuable kill onto the Tiamat, but Elleon still has leg in this fight, and Aegis necessary from XD, and it pays off. 1-for-1 trade. Joshy down for Grave.
Shippigami putting up a whole lot of damage in that fight. If he's not there, sinking auto attacks into Elleon, that goes completely south for Yomi Tanuki. Got to give credit to Joshy, though. Survives for much longer than he had any right to do, and that's without even having to use the beads. Only the Aegis lost there to the DPS of Grave, who found a great opportunity to apply his damage. I'm not so certain that Joshy can be left alone like he was in that fight, though. It was Slaaaash trying to catch up, make sure Grave pays for it, Tubahh as well. The rest of the team is playing around this Tiamat. I think it was much more difficult for Grave to go for those solo agent style plays. With that said, the Kaolin Wardens are capable of executing the same level of dive. Serqet maybe not dealing the same amount of damage on her own, but certainly just as mobile as a Pele, has a great opportunity to jump on a Shippigami, who seems to be one of the biggest threats on the map right now. The backline of the Yomi Tanuki actually undying, 0-0-3, twinning between XD and Shippigami. Someone's got to stop them. If you can kill either one of the two, the Wardens will feel much more confident in their ability to just pull the fire.
Yep. Well, it's relics down for XD, so maybe where Elleon will find an opening, choose to find his initiation. Primal Fury's going to be up here in just a couple moments of time. Clearly, you're not going to want to swap one for the Fire Giant, Primal Fury for the Fire Giant, but is a threat.
Could triple bomb set up here? That's essentially just a Phoenix dead.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're going to have a lot of burst damage. The Kaolin Wardens, unless this is stolen away by the Tanuki, will have a third runic bomb down on the map. Elleon's got 2. Oceans has 1.
Is that allowed?
Yeah, it's happening. They don't time out. You can sit on those for as long as you want.
Like, they could
But-
just backdoor a Phoenix.
Yeah, but this is the call. The Kaolin Wardens a slight pump fake to left. The Yomi Tanuki immediately head to the Fire Giant. But is this a bait from the Kaolin Wardens? They might get enveloped here. Or the Yomi Tanuki, rather, might get enveloped here by the Kaolin
Too
Wardens.
slow.
But not enough damage, and what was a tense moment fizzles out.
No way they could actually just pull the fire. They do at least get vision in the pit. That Sentry Ward gets rid of what the Kaolin Wardens had set up previously. Holding a defensive position much easier than fighting into it, so Yomi Tanuki have that to lean on.
Promise initiated on by Elleon. Got to be a kill for the Kaolin Wardens, but instead, it's Leon who's got to leap away. Blink, initiation, beads, all down from this Serqet. Got to play carefully. Also, you're worried about killing off XD. You got to kill him twice. Alternate timeline picked up for the Merlin. You don't get a full reheal, but does make it difficult for the enemy team to shift priority and then shift back eventually. Grave, Elleon, they're going 1 for 1, but Grave hasn't completed the kill. Joshy has. He's done too much, and the Kaolin Wardens call him on it.
Elleon could be the target. It's Tubahh taking the damage. Shi'igami up to the air, but left alone on an island. Will be able to roll towards the rest of his team. The Kaolin Wardens reset back towards the Fire Giant, get it right back into a neutral state. This time, though, Grave dead for 40. Yomi Tanuki fighting without their carry.
There are 3 runic bombs on the map, but 2 of them just now leaving the base of the Kaolin Wardens. Elleon will be back here in time. It's pretty telling. We actually haven't seen many get used on the Fire Giant. It might depend on how far forward the Yomi Tanuki want to play this. Elleon, he can see low health Rundas, low health Promise. Really low health. Nice. Great minds. Fire Giant down beneath half. Oceans is there if you want to drop the runic bomb, but the Yomi Tanuki playing far enough back. You might not need it. Promise initiated on by Elleon. Runic bomb used by Oceans. Rundas back behind the Kaolin Wardens, and they're low. 3 members of the Kaolin Wardens nearing red HP. Alternate timeline wears out. A double kill for Leon, and none of those red health bars will reach 0. Fire Giant +2 for the Kaolin Wardens.
Rundas on the retreat, but how far can he make it? Minotaur doesn't connect the slow, but the damage is certainly there. Shi'igami, though, he's putting up numbers.
Shi'igami, you gotta win this fight. Grave rejoins, but Rundas ends up dropping, and Grave with it all to do won't get any of it done but 1. And a double kill for Joshy, who's had a heck of a game in game 1 against the Yomi Tanuki. Improves to 7, 1, and 12 on the Tiamat. Talking about one of the mid laners that needs to die. It's Joshy, who's just been on an absolute tear.
Got a lot of time to play here. XD up in 20.
It's
That's
literally
the
all
one you're
Joshy
really
with
worried
the
about.
damage.
Yeah, I mean, Joshy's Tiamat is ridiculous. That we've been known about that. I just take it for granted by now. Phoenix under siege. Promise can't do it on his own. They should be able to get this
Runic
back
bomb.
up.
Boom. Big one.
Oh, wait. They got a couple bomb. One more bomb's left.
Might be able to get a second Phoenix off of it.
EFG helps out with the mitigation as
Doink.
well. That's 1,000 immediately.
That's beefy. It's a pretty costly second wave of fighting there from Yomi Tanuki. Now lose both mid and right Phoenix almost immediately. Left side tower is still standing, and so that was not an option for the Wardens, but great value.
As an interaction, I hadn't thought about it all either, Dave. I mean, EFG getting rid of the backdoor protections, which would have mitigated the true damage of the runic bomb. Maybe that's what the Kaolin Wardens were waiting for. Hey, we got our EFG, now we can start using these bombs to take out these birds. Clean play from the Wardens. A lot of baits there. Grave, I think if you want to go back to his initial spill around the Fire Giant where he tries to all in onto Elleon, a play I do not want to see repeated. The Volcanic Lightning, you can use it to chase a Serqet, but you've got to really know that all of her mobility is down. Leon just uses the leap over the wall, joins his team, and Grave left high and dry, dies alone. From there, Yomi Tanuki never quite found their footing, and the Kaolin Wardens continually bait them in towards the Fire Giant pit. Finally put it on 4 belts. Getting EFG off of Tubahh, though, very big for Yomi Tanuki. Grave, if you have to go for a 1-for-1 there, I think you chose your right target. Now it's going to be a little bit more difficult to actually siege in towards these tier 2s, these Phoenixes. I doubt we see a hard defense from Tanuki, even though they have got the Merlin, and I do love Merlin on defense. This deficit a little bit too large.
Feels like this has just been a brutal game for the front line of the Tanuki. I mean, you're looking at 20 kills total for the Kaolin Wardens, 18 of them spread across jungle, solo, and support, where the carries have just been killed off once. Whereas on the flip side, Tanuki have 8 kills. 5 of them are on Tubahh, and they happened early in the game, and then 3 sort of intermittently elsewhere. This Wardens team really just figured out the mid-game, it felt like, Myth, especially around some of those early Furies. Bait in, one-man advantage ends up turning into a kill. And I've loved what they've done with the Runic Bombs. We see 2 of the 3 used on the Phoenixes in the last moment. And then the Fire Giant gets a Runic Bomb just for confirm a moment ago. Feels like the Wardens maybe just needed some time to wake up here in this first game and got back to their identity in the last 15 or 20 minutes.
They just needed a Hunter player, and they didn't have one for the first 10 because he was being accosted. Similarly to Rundas. I mean, Tubahh and Rundas, I think maybe some parity in their journeys here. The hero's journey of getting caught between your towers continually, but eventually
how does that journey
turns
end?
around. Well, I mean,
For one of them.
yeah, for one of them, that's the harsh truth of competition, Dave.
That's
Someone's got to lose.
So one of them's on the loser's journey. The
Well,
other
you know.
one's on the hero's journey, I guess. Tubahh on a good pace right now with the rest of their team. Rundas, unfortunately, when I talk about it being brutal for front lines, walks forward like an Artio wants to. Actually found a really nice 3-man stun in a sort of second wind fight there for the
Good
Tanuki.
flank, too.
But it's been peeled out. Again, I think Joshy's got some really nice self-peel so far here this game, getting some knockups. And getting the Tanuki off the Tiamat. That 1 needs to become a 2 at some point in that death column if the Tanuki want any chance at winning any of these fights. Runic Bomb picked up by Elleon this time. 2 towers and a Phoenix still standing. Feels like now it's just a simple game of chess for the Kaolin Wardens. You got some very obvious moves to put yourself in checkmate scenario.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally one avenue to walk down because they've done all the work everywhere else. So maybe put some enhanced minion waves through those lanes, but otherwise work through the last remaining bird of Yomi Tanuki. Tanuki cannot allow this fight to enter the Titan room. I think if it's going to go their way, it's got to happen around this Phoenix or maybe outside of it. So difficult to make the comeback once all 3 birds are down.
Leon, he is wrapping through the mid lane. That is now open. See already some nice poke damage on that Phoenix. Leon and Slaaaash, they're playing off of one another very effectively. Fire minions will slowly make their way down the right side of the map, so that'll soften up the defense of the Yomi Tanuki just a little bit, and the Kaolin Wardens will be able to play off of it. You've got plenty of time here with those fire minions on mid and fire minions on right. Now it's just about Tubahh getting just a bit more damage on that Phoenix. He's able to do so now. Promise stun. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel onto Rundas, and he's brought back into the Lion's Den. 3rd Phoenix down. Rundas stunned. But Rundas with the beads will be able to dash away this time. Shipigami out of the snipes. No, he drops right at the feet of the Kaolin Wardens. And this has been inevitable. But the Kaolin Wardens are dropping the Yomi Tanuki, and they'll take over game 1.
The Kaolin Wardens make hard adaptations here in the set. What had cost them their previous sets was objective play. Group up around the Gold Fury, have it stolen. Group up around the Fire Giant, have it stolen. It seems to me, instead of committing to, hey, let's just secure our objectives, it's let's not go for the objective unless it's absolutely guaranteed. It's always a bait for the fight. I didn't see them group up on a gold and coin toss it a single time. A Fire Giant, not there either. It's always wait for them to come in, pick the frontliner, back up, rinse, repeat until you find that perfect opportunity. And it looks good for them.
And Myth, one thing you mentioned kind of late, early mid-game of that was where Elleon doesn't or hasn't paid way too much attention to the duo lane. A lot of attention paid over to the soul lane, and that's not exclusive to this game right now. We saw that yesterday in the Kaolin Warden set. Leon and Slaaaash playing off one another very effectively, getting Joshy involved as early as possible. Tubahh, and it's the same situation here, where as long as he can kind of sit back, farm up, and stay stable, feels like Elleon on the right side of the map sort of put the pieces together eventually, and unfortunately for Rundas, that comes at the hand of like 3 repeated ganks in a row. Just happens sometimes. Little je ne sais quoi. That it doesn't work there. Not at all. We'll figure out exactly how that phrasing works while we take a quick break. We'll be right back for game number 2.
Starting to dry drive me crazy. Like just get out and face it. Fix your mess, you made it. Yeah, I did it to myself. Yeah, I did it to myself. Yeah, I did it to my, did it to my, did it to myself. Yeah, I did it to myself. Can't blame nobody else. Did it to myself. Yeah, I did it to myself. Yeah, I did it to myself. Did it to myself. Can't blame nobody else. It's none of my damn business. I should listen to my instinct and let go of all comparison. It's none of my damn business. I should just sit down and listen, 'cause I know I have a lot to learn. It's none of my damn business. I should listen to my instinct and let go of all comparisons. It's none of my damn business. I should just sit down and listen, 'cause I know I have a lot to learn. It's none of my damn business.
Game number 1 between the Yomi Tanuki and the Kaolin Wardens goes the way of the Wardens this time around, though it wasn't an easy path for the Wardens to get there. A very rough, shaky start over in the dual lane to kind of kick things off, but all it took was about 10 minutes or so for Elleon and the rest of the squad to be able to kind of group up, really start to punish over on that right side of the map in that solo lane Gormizer, and that's where we started to kind of see the crumbling of the Yomi Tanuki, because they put a heavy emphasis on shutting down the dual lane, making sure that Tubahh couldn't do anything, making sure that Oceans wasn't comfortable in that lane. But then when you put all your eggs in the dual lane basket, you kind of forget about the rest of the map. One player in particular by the end of that game really was standing out through, and that was Joshy over in that mid roll as well.
I think Joshy had a phenomenal game, right? I mean, you're talking about like standout performances. Yes, there's a lot of setup that's coming around the team, but there are a lot of moments where Joshy is isolated, targeted, and yet still, while backing up, killing people in the process, helping his team out. Sometimes losing his life in the process of it all, but still being able to go at minimum 1v1. I think you get a lot of focus from the Tanuki early on, like you said, over and left. Then you start to see around that 9-minute mark things really take a drastic shift, and you get a massive, massive swing. You had mentioned and talked about focusing Rundas, making sure that solo laner, and you had even mentioned it earlier where you said, well, yesterday they did the same thing, but with Rimikami. So what if they just do something similar? And they did. They just walked over there. I mean, that Artio had virtually no impact on a majority of the fights, even when trying their best. There's just not much they could do. Very, like, you'll see it in the KDAs, but very, very easily and well focused down by the Wardens. And then when Joshy, in that instance, doesn't get touched at all, but in most instances, was finding insane damage and shots throughout all of it. Once the team started to group up even slightly, some of it's ganks, but then once they get into any sort of 3v3 or 4-on-4 or anything higher, it becomes an absolute different game for them. 9-1 and 14. Leon plays incredibly well, 5-2 and 16, right? A lot of assists for him, a lot of assists for Slaaaash and for Oceans and for Tubahh. Every single person on this team was being active and playing well. But when you go 9-1, you know you're putting a huge impact, and you're pretty much matching the amount of assists by everybody. Joshy was putting in the work. Meanwhile, on the other side, you've got Grave, who was 7-8, got a lot of kills, but died a lot for it, similar to a performance that we would have maybe talked with, like Scream. Sometimes they would win, but it's with an even KDA because they're going to go in, and just as often as they're getting kills, they're getting killed. Unfortunately, it was also then beside Rundas, who was 1-8, and they just made sure that Artio just could not exist, could not function, could not create space, could not do anything that you would want from an Artio. And it's got me at least questioning a little bit, because so far Rundas is the only one who's been playing around like with the Artio, with the Yorm. Maybe there's something that needs to change over in the solo lane.
Potentially so. We'll see if he gets forced onto another new pick. Let's jump to the picks advance for game number 2 between the Tanuki and the Wardens. One thing that really stuck out to me on the stats page that came up at the end, the post-game stats, was I looked down, I saw 43,000 player damage for Joshy on the Tiamat. Maybe it's time that we take that pick away from him. Maybe it's time that we get rid of the Tiamat and not allow Joshy to kind of free cast these backlines, be as tanky as he is when he goes down to that quadrupedal stance. Because it just feels like this Tiamat, man, has risen up throughout this meta of this tournament, has been kind of at the forefront of conversation for a lot of mid laners through.
Tiamat.
It's a good answer by the Yomi Tanuki. They will, instead of banning it, take it away for a first pick.
Yeah, I like that. As far as choices go, I feel like that is one of the better ways to go, because it's similar to what I was saying last time, where you pick up the Yemoja first, and it's like, well, you could have gotten that. Like, if they grabbed Yemoja, you would have gotten Maui. Like, your worst case scenario, if you're looking at just the top two. They didn't even go for it. They went for Xing anyway towards the end of it. So I think that the Tanuki have at least isolated a problem. This is a 4th ban, maybe more than it is a solid pick, but I think XD has had a pretty decent game. I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do with this. Downsides immediately. Mercury's still open. Technically, I was going to say Freya's still open. There's still Maui's still open. There's so many really good picks that are still open. But Mercury has been one that treats Elleon incredibly well. Very, very dominant performance. And Merlin a little lower than the 83% he had coming into this, but still a really solid win rate. And if you give Joshy something that he can cook with, I think he's going to do incredibly well. The Tiamat looks great. I think Merlin's not going to look any less.
Yeah, I think this game, definitely some more emphasis towards Joshy might be in order for the Yomi Tanuki, because you can't just let the mid laner free cast the way that he did, put the the kind of damage numbers that he was able to throughout that game. I mean, you watched one of those last little highlights around the Fire Giant, and Joshy goes unscathed the entire way through. I mean, not a single person had their attention towards him. He was just running around finding those picks. But Merlin, Mercury for the Wardens, Pele, and Kaolin now for the Yomi Tanuki. So we see Rundas shy away from his usual once more. Now with the Kaolin in hands, we've seen what some of the players could do with this kind of a pick. As the games go later, if we do start getting to this 30, 35-minute point of the game, feels like Kaolin could be an unstoppable monster, but if the Kaolin Wardens and if Elleon just kind of gives them the same treatment they did in game number 1, could be a rough lane maybe for this Yomi Tanuki solo. So with the Wardens, their final selection, go towards the Khepri very early on in the draft, but seeing that Kaolin and Pele there, not many other executes available in the game for them to try and pick up.
Yeah, and pretty much the two positions that you would have grabbed anything in has been taken, right? Unless you really, really want to try to shoehorn in something and run something ridiculous like I don't even want to say it. I was going to say like Achilles there as a support, or I mean, we've been seeing some people run assassins in the duo lane. Maybe Thanatos could work over there. I'm not a big fan of either of those options, if I'm honest with you. So I like the Khepri here, strictly because of what it gets to bring to the team, right? You have that res. It's very easy. You've got really good setup. Plus, you've got mitigations. You've got so much that comes in this kit. It feels just so solid. You don't have a carry alongside you. Actually, the thing that's weirdest about this Wardens draft so far is the fact that they got Leon's pick so high up, right? They've left something else open. Somebody else gets to be the counter pick. And so they're going to be looking towards like solo lane. They're going to be looking towards their carry. So far, Tubah's been playing some of the wildest things and not anything that you would go off the top of the tier list. I mean, you could easily grab a warrior here or a Freya here, have a huge power spike, and then just grab another warrior towards the very end. Granted, that's starting to get a little more limited. So I don't mind going for the Hunters. Just had a good Hachi game. Might as well go back to it, right? Feels safe, feels solid. With Chiron banned out, you might as well. Also, I'm just now remembering, Tubahh said yesterday in his interview that he's not a Freya player. So we know the Wardens aren't even going to value it that highly, which makes, I guess, these Hunters kind of, again, surprising maybe that Ishtar's not there. Hachi's way safer, though. Good clear. Good damage. And again, after last game, I don't have much complaints about it getting locked in.
Do not forget.
Well, what was a first pick for the Tanuki in game number 1 is now dropped to a 4th pick in their draft. Yemoja for the Yomi Tanuki. One more pick now will be the Hunter, or at least the carry position for the Tanuki. It'll be Olorun pairing up alongside the Yemoja. Previously, we've been seeing a lot more emphasis towards the Freya. Haven't seen very many Olorun games yet, just 2 so far this weekend, despite the number of bans that he's eaten so far.
Yeah.
With Yemoja and an Olorun, that is the what I'll call the literal no-play rectangle. If those two ultimates stack up together, you have the River's Rebuke blocking off 2 exit points, and then you're already slowed inside that ultimate. Not going to be fun if anybody gets caught inside of there. But a hover from the Wardens on a pick that typically we see reserved for the jungle, but might be going towards solo if it gets locked in. Gilgamesh being hovered by the Wardens. We might wait to see if that one gets locked in before we discuss further on there, but there have been some buffs to Gilgamesh that do make him maybe a little bit better in the solo. The MP5 that he gets, or not the MP5, the HP5 he gets whenever he has that first ability active with that sickle. And also a little bit of cooldown, I believe, removed off the dropkick a while back as well.
The things that Gilgamesh is going to bring, in my mind, the lane phase is one thing, right? I actually think Kaolin maybe bullies that a little more. Again, clear is going to be maybe the biggest question. Late game, though, you've got a warrior with a lot of mitigations who's going to have displacement, CC, really, really good play. Like, he'd still give you the same thing that he was going to give you in the jungle, except maybe less damage on it, more CC from it, right? More survivability from it. So I wouldn't have minded it, but I think the thing is like, if you're thinking of just lane clear potential, you're safe. If Pele comes over there, you're pretty good at disengaging. I don't know how good you are just in the one-on-one matchup. You might be losing some farm there. So I like the pivot to the tier instead. Good clear, decent health, still has a lot of CC, but maybe fits that role a little bit better, right? Good at mitigations. His passive plays really well into a lot of CC on the other side. So I think that that's going to give him a lot of opening. And Olorun, we've mentioned in the past, like he only has a little bit of survivability in his kit. It's not the most fantastic survivability you've seen. Outside of his ult, he has a small knockback. And so, realistically, a tier can absolutely bully him in the late game. You add that with like what a Mercury should be bringing to the table, what a Khepri should be bringing to the table. I feel like the Olorun is part of the target here. I think they're the ones that you're going to try to shut down, and I think he's a pretty easy target for the 3 of them.
Yeah, I wonder if this Olorun would be the primary target for Elleon and the Wardens this time around, where the last couple of games that the Wardens have played, it's been heavy emphasis on keeping the solo
Yeah.
lane down, keeping the frontliners pushed away. So I wonder if Elleon will go back and drop the solo, or if maybe we see him kind of shift things up and move over to duo
After
lane.
some of the Kaolin performances that we have seen so far in this tournament, I'm not going to be against someone going and camping Kaolin for a while to try and shut him down. Get that guy out of there, get him as far back as you can. It would be perfectly fine. And we saw how Rundas looked a little more uncomfortable, right? Having some of those picks taken away. I have to imagine with those others available outside of the Yorm, right? You still had your Chalk, which we saw him go to yesterday. You still had, some of the others. I guess the Odin that was banned out last game, if you had wanted to go to that. Goes for the Kaolin, picks it up early on. I think this is a really big moment for Rundas to showcase what this solo lane can do, whether it's going to be survivability or not. We saw the kills arrive for Grave last time around. He was just getting bullied in response. I think that if we can see some mid lane damage, but some solo lane presence, that's going to be what gives the Tanuki more of an opportunity.
So now for the Yomi Tanuki, they are one game away from being eliminated from this tournament, one game away from losing their chance to maybe make it up to the Smite Pro League. The Kaolin Wardens, on the opposite end, they're one game away from moving on in the losers bracket. They still got a few more sets to win if they want to make it, but they keep their tournament playoff chances alive in this regard with a win here up against the Yomi Tanuki. For the Tanuki to keep themselves, to keep their heads above water and to try and keep going on, push towards a game 3, where would you like to see the Yomi Tanuki kind of put that emphasis to keep this game going?
I honestly think for this one, try to get your Olorun ahead, make sure that your Pele has the performance that Graves need, and you're going to be able to get things done.
Well, we'll see if the Yomi Tanuki can bring it back and bring us into a game number 3, or is this going to be the end of the line for the Tanuki? We got to find out in game number 2.
Man, 2 elimination matches today, 2 upper bracket matches today. Things heating up here at the Smite Pro League promotional tournament. Can you say that 5 times fast?
I'm not going to try.
Okay.
So you'll have to take my word for it when
It's
I say
actually not really a
yes.
tongue twister. It's just a lot of
It's a lot of
puzz.
syllables.
Yeah, right.
Consonants. Hate consonants.
There's only a few constants in life.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about Smite.
So let's talk about Smite. Kaolin Wardens, one of the constants is that Elleon eventually is going to start playing around his solo lane, and the team is just going to springboard from there. We talked to Tubahh in the hallway just briefly after that game. He was like, man, that early game was tough, but I had to survive, and he did.
I told him nobody was helping him. You know what he said? He said, yeah, just had to gank solo lane. You know how it is. I was like, all right. You could tell Tubahh has full faith in Elleon. Whatever Leon wants to do, Tubahh loves it.
Same thing happened yesterday, where Tubahh, and Tubahh wasn't like 0-4 in lane yesterday, but sat in lane against a very similar style duo lane. It was Freya Maui. This time it's Yemoja Olorun that Tubah's got a lane against.
It's a lot of pressure.
And it was a lot of pressure last time, and he just sat back, chilled out, and eventually it didn't really matter what happened in the laning phase. Is that a realistic mentality, though, Myth? Is there a world where you can just ignore Olorun and Yemoja, if you're maybe Elleon specifically, and get by with things here in game 2?
I mean, is it possible? Yes.
Oh, of course it's possible.
Is it?
Is it ideal?
No, I don't think so.
Ooh.
It's a hyper carry,
Oh.
largely a mobile hyper carry that doesn't have answers to your global presence. I'd really like to see Leon make some of those rotations over towards the duo lane. Already with his pathing as it is, seems like he might be rolling through pretty quickly.
Interesting. See, this is what Elleon has been doing really all weekend long, where Oceans and Tubahh pull green and purple, but leave Harpies, and Elleon goes back after the first grouping, pulls speed over to the Harpies. I suppose he's already over on the left side of the map at
Fastest
that
level
point.
3.
And he's super quick to level 3. Tends to go to mid. Exactly what he'll do here. And would have loved to have gotten another set of beads off, which is something that Elleon did a few times last time. Grave back on this Pele, though, Myth, on the other side of the jungle battle. That maybe got lost in translation a bit towards the end of the first game. Is that Grave actually had a really good early game on the Pele. Got a lot of things going for their team. Just sort of fell by the wayside. It was a lot of the diving and killing early, then dying. And then the killing started to fade away, and it just was a lot of diving and dying by the end of the game. Potentially some good targets, though, for Grave here in game 2.
I think so. You really like Graves' 1v1 potential into the Mercury if you can catch Elleon in the jungle. You favor the Pele this early in the game. Joshy now off the Tiamat, a little bit less safe. Still has access to Flicker, but Pele just so fast that you got to think you just walk him down immediately afterward. I think the primary thing that Grave is going to run into, that first wall we're going to see in the team fight, is Oceans' pick. This Khepri, the Scarab's Blessing, so difficult to deal with when you're playing a 1-for-1 style pick, and that's exactly what Pele is. I'll go in, I'll find my one, I'm going to die. We saw it a whole lot. Good luck getting that one when they're revived.
Goodness. Rundas, CC'd
ground.
to hell and back, finally reaches the ground. Oh, but
Appeal.
Grave is here.
Slash is on him.
Slaaaash has
dash.
got the gap closing. Slaaaash has got first blood.
More?
Game 2 starts exactly how Game 1 ended. Grave will be okay. But Elleon simply walks right in front of that Tier 1 tower, and the chain CC, Myth, that was about as perfect as it gets for the Kaolin Wardens.
I've never seen a Fearless keep somebody 15 feet above the ground for that long.
Yep.
That combo, so frustrating to play against, and now it's the blue buff under threat.
Talked about how this might be a good matchup, though. The Pele into the Mercury. Rundas and Grave seem to agree. It's the one level advantage for Slaaaash that's potentially a difference maker here around this fight. A couple
They
of the
got it.
smalls and the blue buff dropped by the Kaolin Wardens, and Leon wants out. Slaaaash does too. For now, the dash good. Grave and Rundas may have to give up on this, or are Elleon and Slaaaash going to turn it around instead? No rotations out of mid. A re-invade from the Yomi Tanuki on the
Joshy.
Kaolin Wardens blue buff. Blue buff gets secured by the Wardens yet again. Elleon is low. Elleon
dangerous.
just needs
There's
to
the
get
transform.
out. And it's a shove back from Slaaaash. Rundas gets the kill onto Elleon anyway. Both mid laners now out of the mid lane. Trying to fight in a bit more. Well, it ends up being 2 stolen blue buffs by the Kaolin Wardens, or 2 confirmed blue buff by the Kaolin Wardens. But you do lose Elleon in the process.
Small fumble from Slaaaash there. If that Fearless connects with Rundas, Elleon makes it out alive. Regardless, it's both blues and a kill for 1 kill on the side of Yomi Tanuki. If you're going to strip blue away from any soul laner, though, I think Rundas probably feels a bit better about it. It's not as if Kaolin has to play with mana. Has his own unique mana pool off that rage. So
Just mad.
for now, I think just fine. And it's not like it's OG blue buff with CDR. Couldn't even tell you how that one happens. Grave just a little bit too far forward there.
Leon's 5, doesn't have ult.
Oh, he got
Whoa,
slammed by
has-
the Sonic Boom. That's
has
what it
ult,
was.
but on cooldown, and no beats for Grave early in the laning phase. Seems like it was just a nice chaining there, and again,
He must have been trying to hit 5 and just got caught out a
Right.
little bit too early.
well, what we're used to seeing is Elleon going right, on blue buff, on cooldown, Slaaaash being there on time, getting Joshy involved as early as possible, saying dual lane, kick up the feet, you guys just survive and we'll be okay. Run back the script in the early goings of Game 2 here. That said, that can sometimes open up, Myth, an opportunity for the opposing team to read it a bit better. If you know that Elleon's going to be over on right, Grave has the opportunity to be there on time as well. You know, if you feel confident in your 2v2 at that point in the game, you know there's a realistic chance of a fight.
There is. But between Promise and Shi'igami on the left-hand side, even with the knowledge that Elleon's been playing on right, it's really difficult for Olorun and Yemoja to force an engagement onto a Hachiman. Best case scenario, you lock down the entire lane with the River's Rebuke, but if Tubahh's allowed you to get that close to him to lock down the lane, I think the fight has already gone your way. Grave, though, could simplify the matter. Has timer on this purple. Oceans of Tubahh, defensive pathing, and Leon, he's on the opposite side.
Graves on a ward, though. Promise, not making their presence unknown, will step forward while the purple buff gets pulled. Purple buff dropped by the Yomi Tanuki, and so an invade for Grave does end up paying off. Elleon, though, searching, will not find a speed buff on the backside here. Drops a ward. Know exactly where the Pele is, and it's actually pings on the Gold Fury for the Yomi Tanuki. Not only
It's too
considering it, but pulling it.
Surely
There's no
there's rotation.
reply here from the Kaolin Wardens. This is just quick burn. Well, quick, you know, relative, right? Quick to the reply of the Kaolin Wardens, and Gold Fury dropped by the Yomi Tanuki at 6 minutes. I'm still not used to the Gold Fury going down that early, but that's the pace of the game so far here in Season 10. And a nice play from the Tanuki equalizes the game.
Hadn't even realized Oceans had gone back to base. I thought the dual lane of the Kaolin Wardens would have been enough to at least dissuade Yomi Tanuki from leaving it to a coin toss, but no rotation. Ocean's too far. Leon still hovering on the right-hand side, and Yomi Tanuki, a very smart call to grab the neutral objective. That's something Promise had talked about a whole lot during his interview, and I've had the opportunity to speak with him as well. It's a lot of objective-focused play. Loves going for those styles, just the catch them with their pants down, just not paying attention, and they do exactly that. Has equalized the game a bit, and that's your entire goal with a style of composition. When you've got a hyper carry like Olorun, you are hyper-focused on just getting his itemization available, and that's a phenomenal start. Not only does it get them the objective, but it further incentivizes Elleon to stay off the left side of the map. Now there's nothing to fight over there, creating even more space for Shi'igami to farm.
Remember, the final two, if we get there, games of this set, both knockout matches. The Wardens win this one, Tanuki go home. Tanuki win, we go on to a winner-take-all, loser-go-home game number 3. We've already had one of those this weekend. And the pressure really just only builds up as the course of this week goes on. Everyone had a little bit of leeway on day 1. Teams facing elimination on day 2. Now a couple teams facing elimination here on day 3, where the upper bracket matches later today are going to set the stage for a guaranteed qualification match tomorrow, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch. One of the teams join the SPL for this year. A lot of deserving teams in this tournament. The Tanuki and the Wardens think there are a couple of them, and they've showed us moments of that for sure. Tanuki, students of the game, and they've changed up their style, and they've got to continue to play with the pressure that we just saw around the Gold Fury to keep the Kaolin Wardens slowed down. Right on time. Grave helping out Rundas around the blue buff, knowing that Elleon would love to be here. Wasn't right on time, though, the Mercury. So that'll be a simple cleanup for the Tanuki.
I'm keeping my eyes on Leon. It's a classic. Could
How
set
far
up
he's got
the
to
gank
go,
here.
though? Kind of far.
Rundas is pretty healthy, too. I mean, already in the transformation, has CC immunity available. I don't love this. It's a large time commitment. Leon just going to soak up some of that farm, maybe drop down these bastions, get some gold split between him and his ally. It really is just a very Season 9 jungle pathing from Leon. It reminds me of back in the console days when I was playing against him. Reminds me of watching him in ranked. Loves to play that 2-1-2 meta. Continues to do so here. But with that said, I mean, I think funneling all your resources into Leon, Grave has done a great job of not only keeping up, but keeping his stamp on the map. It's similar to game 1, just outpaced in the early by this Pele.
Eventually the team fighting is going to be very important. Now Sonic Boom finds nothing over in mid. Grave's got to be careful. Without those beads, Sonic Boom into the special delivery. All that damage built up from a Mercury, plus Joshy being there, can absolutely melt through a target. So Grave sidestepping that ultimate wonderfully. Joshy just off to the 1-kill start. That's a thread we're going to have to follow. Top damage in the game, followed by 4 Tanuki at the end of the game, despite a loss. All of it being done by the Tiamat. Merlin has similar capabilities, but Merlin v Tiamat over in mid should be fun to watch as this game goes on. XD has had a wonderful weekend of games. The Tanuki, despite dropping a set, have, I think, really impressed us, and XD has made a name for themselves over the course of the last few sets. And so junglers getting on these mid laners, Miff. I mean, it's always a trend, right? It's nothing new here for this individual game, but one felt successful in game 1, the other had a real hard time of doing so.
But for now, the pace has equalized a fair deal. The Kaolin Wardens seem to be very willing to allow the farm game to just happen. So far, Olorun has gone unchecked over in the duo lane. Leon maybe putting a bit of extra weight on himself here, saying, look, he's a hyper carry in the late game, so am I. Mercury's got that one-shot potential, and going down the crit tree should get the rage stacked up pretty quickly if that's the path he elects to go. And it is. Rage in second slot for the Merc. So Leon now, maybe a little bit more incentive to get involved in the fight, just so you can stack it up. But regardless, is scaling very well. Yomi Tanuki, they made their money here previously. Try to do so again with the 4-stack. This time the Ocean's not in base. We'll just peek his head around the corner, and Yomi Tanuki, they show their hand. We're not really willing to take the fight. It's free Gold Furies that we're after.
This Mercury over on the left side of the map for first time so far in the first 11 minutes of this game. There's good ward coverage from the Tanuki on the back side of the Primal Fury pit on the Kaolin Warden side of the map. So Elleon, any movements over on his own side of the jungle around that Fury pit will be spotted out, but not on the Yomi Tanuki side of the jungle. Promise pulled back,
Damage.
Rivers Rebuke
Wow.
up, and 4 men around Promise, simply too much damage. Now the Kaolin Wardens, Smith, they've got an opening. No Rivers Rebuke. Massive team fight utility now off the map.
And Grave, I don't think he's aware that Leon's behind him. This could be big. That's massive damage immediately.
My goodness.
And he is off the map. Joshy, credit for the kill. Pull the Gold Fury. Promise still dead. Grave gone for 20. You got a crit build. You gotta think that would have been an opportunity to look towards the Fury itself, but instead maybe permanent objectives on the mine. Tier 1 tower, that really opens up your map.
Well, Well, the shot call was immediate. You saw every single Wardens player that was on right
fast.
immediately turn and go to mid. Maybe still sensing there's an opportunity. Oh, no.
That's spooky for me. Oceans is feeling himself too much now.
Ocean's dancing
You're doing
around
too
a
much,
little bit
bud.
in mid. Well, the team is feeling good. Joshy 3-0 on the start of this. 2 stacks already built up for Elleon on the Rage. The stage has been set for the next 5-10 minutes of this game. Grave desperately wanting to hit level 12. Wow, the Yomi Tanuki.
They're relentless.
Sensing that the Kaolin Wardens have maybe let up pressure over on left just a bit. So Primal Fury down to half. Grave diving Tubahh, and that's simple for the Yomi Tanuki jungler. But the Primal Fury not confirmed,
Wardens.
and the Kaolin Wardens will get it. And another kill for Joshy on the Merlin. Promise sent back, double kill. Joshy 5-0, and it's disastrous. It's a great start for the Tanuki, but not only is the Fury stolen, but their duo lane is as well.
Man, that is so tough. Great decision-making from Leon and Joshy there. They see Tubahh getting dove in the back, and I guess Leon's got plenty of practice just ignoring Tubahh getting dove, but walks right past him, gets into the Gold Fury pit, and turns around that fight. Sonic boom placement, very clean. And this Mercury now with a full stacked Rage. How long did he have it? A minute, maybe?
It's the opposite of the Rage curse. Sometimes we see players buy it and won't get a stack for 15-20 minutes, just
That's
nothing
tough.
happens. It immediately stacks it up. 5 straight assists for
6.
Elleon. Well, 6 straight assists, but all the stacks immediately built up.
You know Leon hates every bit of that. He's pressing tab every 3 seconds and getting
Seeing
really
5
mad.
on Joshy. And he's
Yeah.
like, "God."
Oh, okay, Josh, you gonna do some damage though?
Yeah, right, at some
will.
point you got to, right?
Joshy's nuts. He'll do it.
300 damage behind Elleon right now. That damage will build up over the course of the next few minutes. Sonic Boom, not ready. Beads off of XD. Good opportunity, though, for the Tanuki. They've rallied the Kaolin Wardens. But is that where you want him at all? Now it's just the tanks left running. You've got no more damage in this fight.
Dash is coming up soon.
Olorun is over back in mid. Elleon shoves Promise into a locker, and Joshy on a 6 streak will hit another. Rundas shoved to the side. Elleon avoids some of the lockdown. Grave, good opportunity here for him to flip this fight, but Ocean's right on it. Slaaaash with another, and it's another consolation prize style of fight for the Tanuki.
Well-placed ultimate from Rundas to avoid the special delivery. If that connects, Leon puts another one on his belt and walks out for free. Instead, the CC immunity just puts him in a bad position, and Aegis not enough to bail him out. I do love this aggressive styling, though, from the Kaolin Wardens. You can really tell they're playing with confidence now. Tubahh has gone uninvolved, and I suppose that is just the strategy for this team, as all the fights have just been around the core 3 members, Leon, Joshy, and Ocean. Slaaaash involved when Leon makes the rotation all the way towards his side of the map. But now, with Gold Fury off and Pyromancer on the respawn, already got a full stacked Rage, probably pretty close to a Deathbringer at that. Gotta think the Kaolin Wardens can keep up this pace, keep up the pressure. Don't let Yomi Tanuki farm up. They do have, Yomi Tanuki that is, 1 silver lining, something we haven't had an opportunity to see just yet. An ability we haven't seen just yet. That time dilation, the Sanctified Fields, a massive teamfight ultimate, and he's really starting to spool up. Already level 14, 2 rings finished, moving down the focus tree. He's been bullying out his lane. The game could shift drastically once Shi'igami gets involved.
If the Kaolin Wardens end up winning this game, and I end up interviewing Tubahh, it's going to be the same as last time, where this has been happening all game long, and Tubahh just says, I got to sit back and farm, because my team is winning elsewhere. 7 in a row for Joshy on the Merlin. We thought it might be a threat later in the game. It's a threat now, and it has been for 5 minutes. Leon hand-delivering a few kills. Soul Laner's having some fun, realizing fighting not happening anywhere near them. But it's about to, if Leon has his way over on right. Blue buff's going to respawn shortly. I'm not sure Leon has the exact timer, but Grave is here. Oh, no. Leon's going to spot out the Pele. Leon will crit the Pele. Knock up, though. This is big from Grave. He's got the bailout from Oceans, though, Leon does. Scarab's Blessing used, and it was needed. And a bit of a damage check there, and one that Grave wins.
Yeah, Grave still has the CC advantage. Maybe if Leon pre-beats the knockup, gets lucky with some crits, you turn around that fight, but doesn't want to utilize that defensive relic just there.
Also didn't have Sonic Boom.
Just checks him. Sonic Boom, too. You're right. Back himself up. Look, Leon now, I think, has done enough. With 10 affected kills in 16 minutes, he can lean back, farm a little bit more, and get some of those priority items. Finish up that Deathbringer, perhaps, and it will be the Deathbringer in 3rd slot. It's a massive spike to your burst, and you can lean on Oceans like we just saw for the safety. But Leon really wants some lifesteal, and he wants it soon. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a serrated edge next.
Yep. Be a good option for Elleon. I mean, stop me if you've heard this before. Elleon has 100% kill participation. Okay. Just in case the folks at home hadn't heard it before, which they have. You're all yelling at me to stop. 100% kill participation for Leon. Joshy just 1 kill behind 100% kill participation. The ability to play around a rotating mid laner has paid off for the Kaolin Wardens and Elleon, and now it's going to rotate on over to the Oni Fury. All about initiation now. You're right, Miff. We haven't seen River's Rebuke plus Sanctified Field yet. That is a massive team fight from the Yomi Tanuki if the Kaolin Wardens are unable to just shrug it off. Wardens regain power position around the Oni Fury. If you don't know where the Mercury is, you've got to be careful stepping up.
Leon acting as zone, but he's also the best part of the burn for the Kaolin Wardens. Has to play on that knife's edge. Fury reset. Rundas pulled out.
Rundas knocked to the side yet again. River's Rebuke goes up into the Sanctified Field, and Oceans locked in. It didn't have Scarab's Blessing. Grave looking for Joshy. Both beads and Aegis used by the Merlin. Sonic Boom right down Main Street. We'll set up a couple and Slaaaash is there for the follow-up. And the tier has suddenly arrived in the team fight. Yomi Tanuki will find the opening. The Kaolin Wardens have found the close.
Massive performance there from Slaaaash. Not only does it rotate through and turn around what was starting to look like a clean escape for Yomi Tanuki, but he actually was proxying at Phoenix before he makes this rotation. So tier 1 tower in the soul lane will fall down. Gold Fury goes to the Kaolin Wardens as well, and this is starting to balloon out of control. 5,000's always been that ticker of, okay, things are starting to look bad. And Shi'igami with no ultimate, it's not ideal.
Has beads and maybe a chance for some damage onto Tubahh. Aegis used. And so at least Shi'igami will get the Aegis off of Tubahh, but not worth it when you end up having to lose your life. If there's now a kill that finds its way to the Hachiman a bit later at a pivotal moment of this game, maybe you're talking about that, but for now, the Kaolin Wardens will take their kill to get some pressure building on left, maybe knock down that tower. It's the one lane on the map that the Kaolin Wardens have been okay letting hang out. Tubahh back to even in levels. As if the laning phase didn't mean all that much. Over to the Fire Giant go the Kaolin Wardens. Runic Bomb in the hands of Oceans. And a Scarab's Blessing ready to go.
This will happen fast.
It'll be quick. The Kaolin Wardens turn their eyes.
Fire Giant pulled now. And the Yomi Tanuki's so far away, 50%. I don't think they can get there.
Ocean's not even here. Well, he is here, but not in the Fire Giant pit. Might drop the Runic Bomb, doesn't need it. Grave dashes against Oceans, and the Kaolin Wardens will get FG. Grave
far up.
Simply left alone in the Fire Giant pit. We have to pan backwards a decent bit to find the next member of the Yomi Tanuki. That's somewhere over on right. Suppose you had to take the chance, but it's a 2-5 game 2 so far for Grave. And a lopsided affair that the Kaolin Wardens have really controlled from the get-go.
Gotta hold him, gotta know when to hold him and when to fold him, and that is a fold him situation for Grave, and my man held. I didn't love that, but it's exactly what happened, and I'm sure Grave probably not happy with how that one pans out either. Seems to me like he's still playing with the slash line in mind of the previous game, the damage output just not there just yet. And now for the next 5-6 seconds as he walks out of base, the rest of his team will have to defend without him. Tier 2 in mid falls down, and the Kaolin Wardens continue to waltz through the late game.
The Kaolin Wardens building up their Runic Bomb inventory again. Remember, it was 3.
They love it.
It was 3 at one point in game 1. It was Enhanced Fire Giant that really made the difference. They dropped those, and then the Phoenixes in almost the same swing. That's about 10 minutes away before we get there, but can absolutely soften up the defense of the Yomi Tanuki if you're ready to go, and you're ready to go now, which the Kaolin Wardens have been. And what's slightly scary is this is now a Warden's team, provided that this game, an 11,000 gold lead, closes out pretty quietly, which it should if you feel like you deserve to be in the SPL. It's a Kaolin Warden's team that's starting to believe a bit. Elleon's alone on right. He's got 2 members of the Yomi Tanuki looking for him.
Spotted on a ward as well. They pinged him.
Grave here. So is Shi'igami. Grave just around the corner. Has Blink. No beads, though, for just about a minute.
Leon can't know Grave's there.
Yeah, but the Kaolin Wardens know Grave is not defending the left side Phoenix right now. Could be a 1v1. This would be potentially a large moment, but no, Grave will back away. Elleon a bit on the chase. Elleon has beads, has ultimate, has a crit for Grave, and Grave
massive
ults
loss.
Away. While the left side Phoenix Myth Blink and you miss it. Looks like Runic Bomb got used by Oceans. And suddenly the Yomi Tanuki lose their most valuable bird.
I mean, I like the idea from Yomi Tanuki. They ping Elleon when he steps on that ward above the Fire Giant. Both Shi'igami and Grave rotate over. They want to catch him out, but Elleon's a veteran player and knows he only needs to distract individual members, and one of those members being Shi'igami means he could just stand there and spin his wheels while the rest of Yomi Tanuki struggle to defend on the left-hand side. Didn't even need to know that Grave was there. Fortunately, Grave was, so 4 versus 3 on left. Even easier for the
kill did he
Kaolin Wardens.
miss? He's got 12 of 13 now. I missed which one Elleon was not a part of.
Oh, man. Well, I'm sure he knows. We'll ask him later.
That's right. Yeah, if we interview Leon, which kill did you not? And he like details the exact moment of telling his team to back up, right?
No, he's like, I told my team to kill this guy, and then they did. So
then they did,
I
right.
should have got the assist. That's exactly what he would say.
So I got the mental assist. I was mentioning it a moment ago, and we'll see how the end of this game plays out. The Tanuki, they still have that team fight ultimate combo between River's Rebuke
40
and Sanctified
seconds.
Field. You're right, 40 seconds left on the Fire Giant buff. No more Runic Bombs for the Kaolin Wardens. This is when it gets awkward, though, for the Tanuki specifically. And might get a glimpse at it here, where in the past, the Yomi Tanuki have, they've had a minute of setup time where the Kaolin Wardens cannot be doing the Fire Giant between the buff falling off and the Fire Giant respawning. In 15 seconds, there's literal 0 ward coverage from the Yomi Tanuki on the right side of the jungle. You have no idea if the Kaolin Wardens are on the Fire Giant, or if they're standing behind a wall, or if they're trying to bait you in. And I suppose it's just simply too risky to step forward, and you kind of have to give up the Fire Giant if you're this far behind.
Yeah, it's so difficult to walk through the jungle. I think that's the primary thing. If you don't have any vision in your jungle, you have to assume the Kaolin Wardens do. Leon, I'm not sure you win this 2v1.
I don't think he does either. We'll have to use the beads and the Sonic Boom.
He's waiting for one of them to back.
Yeah, just lurking in the jungle a bit. Right, when there's no time to put out the vision, the Yomi Tanuki are in just a really awkward spot. That's just Leon trying to catch someone out. The Yomi Tanuki, they agree with us. They say we have no way of knowing where anyone is at any given time, but we know the Fire Giant's up. And they've got a massive ward coverage to know exactly where the Tanuki are.
It's a wall of vision all the way across the map. The Kaolin Wardens, there was no way Yomi Tanuki could have snuck up on them. That is incredibly difficult to fight into. But now it's about siege, a true siege, 5-on-5. I don't want to see any more split attempts. I don't want to see Yomi Tanuki trying to catch out Elleon. I want to see them group up and play as a unit. They've hit some significant power spikes. Typhon's Fang now for Shi'igami, a little bit of lifesteal, a little bit more penetration. Because he should be able to deal with the front line of the Kaolin Wardens. Sanctified Field has not found the most value just yet. Only really the one usage on Oceans around the Gold Fury. But the game simplifies in the Phoenix defense. It's a very narrow space these two teams have to play in, and that can only favor the space control of both Promise and Shi'igami.
One more fight for the Yomi Tanuki. If you want to go to the SPL, you got to send us to a Game 3, and then win a few more sets after that. But for now, the goal, surviving Game 2, where you've not been able to do so from basically 5-minute onwards. Kaolin Wardens really finding their identity later on in this tournament, starting to believe that it's not just a dream, it's a goal, a potentially realistic goal for this team if they're able to continue to play the way they are. And so is the clock about to strike midnight for the Yomi Tanuki. Elleon 2 levels ahead of Grave. Does have Bubble. Will help out with some of that Mercury initiation. Double root in, Sanctified Field, drapes over. Kaolin Wardens simply able to walk out of it. So is Slaaaash, who will leave the base. Big team fight ultimate, maybe the biggest, now gone for the Yomi Tanuki.
Yeah, Oceans will resustain slowly, but still has access to Scarab's Blessing. Leon, acting as solo agent towards mid, will distract Rundas. The right side bird, no defense. It's just falling down for free. The Kaolin Wardens on disengage. No chase. Yomi Tanuki, they're playing it slow. It's very patient. No fumbles just yet, but it's going to be a death of 1,000 cuts if you don't commit soon.
I didn't see you picked up the Runic Bomb. I have to imagine it was used somewhere on the right side Phoenix just now. Made quick work of it. Left side Phoenix respawns, dies as soon as it comes back up just a moment ago. Now Elleon can pinch in. Yomi Tanuki.
Low.
You've got to make a miracle happen. A 3-man knockup from Rundas, but simply too far out of the range of the rest of the Yomi Tanuki. Sonic Boom for Elleon might find a few. It is charged up. Not needed. Promise cleaned up by Joshy, who is divine. And Elleon and Joshy have simply run this game. There's a Scarab's Blessing on the Mercury, and it'll usher him back to safety. There's still 4 members of the Yomi Tanuki alive, and 0 Phoenixes.
A dash in from Rundas, immediately turned, abduct is good. You're not that tanky, bud. Slaaaash, credit for the kill as the Kaolin Wardens still 4 stacked in mid. Could potentially keep up their push, especially with Elleon fully resustained. All birds down. Minion waves are already starting to leak their way into the base. TP available for Slaaaash. He'll join his team very shortly. And it's 40 seconds left on Rundas' respawn.
Shippigami, you're going to get that Sanctified Field back up that you used a moment ago. Maybe not soon enough, though. Titan down to half, and the Yomi Tanuki with one last chance will fall short, and the Kaolin Wardens will send the Tanuki home and will advance in the lower bracket of the SPL promotional tournament.
Well, let that be a lesson to all the other teams who have got SPL aspirations. There's a reason Elleon hasn't been allowed to play his Mercury this entire tournament. It is a completely different look for this player. You could tell it's something they've practiced a whole lot. Every single Scares Blessing that Oceans wasn't using on himself was going to Elleon to facilitate that dive. Clean stuff, but there's a lot to be learned there. I mean, it is a pattern now for this team. Play through solo, leave Tubahh alone. If everybody's paying attention, that could be exploited.
Yeah, play through solo, rotate Joshy out as soon as possible. I mean, the Merlin had all but 1 affected kill through 90-something% of that game. You know, there's got to be something to be said about Joshy as well. Of course, it's Elleon through the jungle that's spearheading the initiation. You're playing through him. You're playing through solo. Joshy, back-to-back games with top damage. 50-something thousand in game 1. Top damage here in game number 2. Merlin looked near unstoppable. This is a scary team, and I said it once or twice during that cast, but this is a team that, you know, they're spiritual. They're really starting to believe.
Spiritual.
I keep using that word. It's incorrect. They are emotional.
Momentum-based.
Momentum-based, sure.
Yeah.
And they're really starting to believe, I
Spiritual
think.
even.
That's what I'm saying. They're
Yeah.
you know, they're
A little je ne sais
it's a little
quoi.
je ne sais quoi. They've got
Okay.
something about them, and they're starting to believe that the SPL could be within their reach. We'll see what happens with the Kaolin Wardens later on this weekend. The desk will tell us exactly how we got here in game 2.
I think a good way to say how they got there is exactly what Dave and Miff were just talking about. Elleon gets Mercury for the first time this event.
I thought you were going to say they were spiritual.
They were spiritual. Emotional even, if you go with that one. But I mean, Elleon has been having this Mercury ban the entire tournament, Gore. It's the first time that we really get to see it kind of break out and get a chance to see the spotlight. Don't imagine any team will ever let it through again after the performance that it had. But also Joshy, man. I got to reemphasize Joshy during this. Game 1, nobody's paying attention to this Tiamat. I believe had a single death the entire game number 1. I believe goes undying in this game as well. Got pulled away from the Tiamat and onto the Merlin. But he is playing this Merlin just like it's a frontline. I mean, every time I look up at Joshy, he is right at the very front of those team fights, just spamming those abilities.
There's 3 sets now that we've watched the Wardens play where each time that they won, it has been a different person having a really solid performance, right? Yesterday, we got to see Tubahh having a really standout performance while the rest of the team, again, kind of facilitated. It's really interesting to watch them because I guarantee when we look at the stats, you'll see, like, Joshy with all the kills, and then 10s to 15s to 20s of assists in the columns for everybody else because that's how well this team plays. They play together, they play as a unit, and one person might end up looking slightly better like slash line wise, but it's just the entire team is so difficult to deal with. If you isolate X as a problem, Y becomes an issue, and it just feels like so far nobody's been able to figure out how to stop them.
Well, we've done a lot of talking about Elleon so far this week, and the good news is we finally get a chance to sit down and actually talk to Elleon. He's standing by with Dave for the post-game interview.
That's right, Elleon with me. Look, you've had near 100% kill participation in like 4 straight games. Talked about it in your set yesterday. I think you miss out on like 1 assist the second game here. I don't know where on the map that happened, but I'm sure you were shot calling from somewhere else on the map. Feels like you and Slaaaash and Joshy, kind of this roaming 3-man squad over on right, have a lot of synergy built up with one another. How long did that take? Was it immediate? Have you always felt like you've had a really good kind of synergy with these guys?
I mean, we only had about like a month and a half, but it's coming together now. I think it's pretty obvious the way we're looking at on the map. I think the other people, when you look at these other games, it looks like everybody's kind of AFK farming and nobody's pressuring the map. Even you said it like earlier in the cast that, oh, why are they here at blue again? They're here at blue. I mean, it's Smite again. Just go to the blues. But even then, I mean, just being able to play opposite sides of the map, and then adjusting with Tubahh, getting him some different picks. A lot of these people are also trying to ban me out. So it becomes interesting on how the draft looks, but the synergy has come together at the right time, obviously, in the losers bracket, and now it's time to go for a run.
Yeah, how many bans is the right number of bans against Elleon? You talking all 5? Are we in that type of territory?
You better add more bans for me.
You need to add a few more. Yeah, talk to me a bit, if you will, about Tubahh, because we interviewed him after the set yesterday. Seems like a pretty level-headed dude. Is the idea that, look, we know that you can carry things later on in the game, in the shot calling, is try to relax and just sustain through the laning phase?
Yeah, exactly. So I think like Season 10 came out, right? All these hunters throughout the years have always been, go to dual lane, I'm power farming, I'm going to carry, and I'm going to take 1v1s when I feel strong. And I just don't really see the meta like that anymore. I think a lot of hunters are lost. And I think we found a play style for Tubahh, and he's just looking effective, and that's what we need from everyone to continue to win.
You talked about going on a run. Weekend did not start off how you guys wanted. You've now won a couple straight sets. Are you starting to believe that this team's got what it takes?
I think as long as we're playing this clean Smite, we can definitely compete with the best. Even the teams that are supposedly going to qualify, everybody thinks, they're, respected players and whatnot. But if we're looking like this, I don't think they're beating us.
Excited to see what you guys get done. GG's, great game. Back to the desk to wrap this one up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sounds like it's confidence across the board for the Kaolin Wardens. Now that they got a couple of wins under their belt down into the lower bracket. As mentioned, didn't start off the greatest for their weekend so far, but ever since then, this team has been looking really strong on their run in the lower bracket, Gore.
Yeah, and again, it's just so amazing to me because what you're about to watch is probably a just really good Joshy montage reel. But in reality, there's so much behind the team that is making all this happen. You got a guy who just had a phenomenal performance on the Tiamat. Switch him away from that god to make it a little more, let's call it uncomfortable. All right, try to control that aspect of the game. And you gave him someone else who has the same amount of or maybe even better actually, burn damage. But on top of all of that, you put a lot of good CC around them, right? Khepri with the reses as well happened a lot onto Elleon, but whenever they were needed, they were incredibly helpful. You get a tier for some of that late game setup. I mean, that right there is just such a perfect instance of what can happen. You're getting burned literally by Merlin while you're getting fearless against the wall. There's no winning in a scenario like that. And so I think the Tanuki were just a little overwhelmed. The draft was played and executed well by the Wardens here. And then by the time they hit late game, when they have a lead as big as the one that they have here, at that point, things are just going to skew in your favor anyway. You got a hyper carry and the Mercury, again, 11 assists that are right there, 11 as well for Oceans. But when you go 9, 0, and 6, 15 affected kills coming out from your mid lane, Joshy puts up a lot. You look at the damage numbers, and the only person who is actually keeping pace with him is Elleon. But the two of them together, essentially an unstoppable force in that game, and it worked out really well. Very similar to what we saw yesterday, but shifting that priority, right? Joshy has a relatively quiet set yesterday. Not necessarily bad, does the damage, does the mage thing, but isn't the one picking up the kills. Tubahh's the one's getting them, right? And so knowing that you can rely on Tubahh, knowing that you can rely on Elleon, knowing that you can rely on Joshy, and knowing that your front line and Oceans and Slaaaash are getting the job done, putting the setup out there for you, I think Elleon has good reason to feel confident in this team. You have to take it's a long run, right? From the first set, they lose, they get knocked into the bottom of the bracket. It is 5 full sets they have to win to get there. They've taken 2 of those down already, and admittedly, the further you go, the harder the opponent you're going to have to deal with, but they have fought really hard to get here. I'm personally really excited to see what the Wardens have to offer throughout the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's the important emphasis, is that it just gets tougher now. We have eliminated our 3rd team from the SPL promotion tournament here with the Yomi Tanuki falling. Next up will be the Chihuahua Storm and the Valhalla Valkyries. We'll see which of those teams gets to move on. But here's the problem for these two teams now, Gore, whichever one makes it out of our next set, and now for the Kaolin Wardens, is their opponents that they're facing are the losers from the top 4 teams up on the winner's side of the bracket. Niflheim Wargs, the loser of that match, will face off against the winner of the Storm and the Valkyries. The loser of the Gladiators and Hounds will be the ones to face off against the Kaolin Wardens. It only gets tougher now from this point through. So getting through what you would kind of call the easier matchups of the tournaments, the lower seeded opponents too out here, the 5 through 10. Now we're going to start to see some of those 1 through 4 sprinkle in there as the weekend continues to go through. It's just going to make it that much harder for these guys.
We started with 10 teams that all had stacked rosters. Somebody had to lose first, right? And that's what we saw yesterday. And you mentioned it earlier, but we were surprised 5th and 6th were the ones that get knocked out. Now we are slowly working our way. Eventually, yeah, you're going to see some of those top-seeded teams, but not only that. Again, if you're, the Storm, if you're the Valkyries, you're the Wardens here, since they're the ones that I had open immediately in front of me. This is where that grind really does come through, right? Where you get to see if all that hard work is going to pay off, because you've beat the guys that maybe sometimes you shouldn't have beat, maybe sometimes you should have, 50-50 each time. Now you're going to be going up against the guys that are favored 60-40, 70-30, and see if you can still do it. I'm really excited to see. Again, most of that's tomorrow when they start getting into those, although there's still a lot. There's another Elim plus the top 2 or top 4 seeds today.
Yeah.
And then we're going to start qualifying teams, man. It's exciting.
Speaking of elimination, there's one more elimination set. That one's going to be coming up next. It'll be the Valhalla Valkyries and the Shibalba Storm facing off. You're not going to want to miss out, so stick around, and we'll be right back.